Fine. If that happens, Jay, fine. I'll dig my Xbox controllers out of the junk drawer, I suppose. This is the Imperial Scrolls Honor podcast. I'm Josh Folan.
And I'm Jay Baxtron.
And we're going to be bullshitting about the formative years of console gaming as we revisit the periodicals that covered it again. Today, we are 3 yards in a cloud of dust in Nintendo of America's 1990 release of NES Play Action Football on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Emulation disclosure, I did my exhibition and playoff runs on OG hardware, and I even have the manual in hard copy, so I was able to flip through that baby like I was in the back of the Little Brown 86 T-Bird on the way there from Toys R Us, the way the game gods intended it for it to be consumed. So that's how I did all my solo gaming, a standard controller too on that front. NES Satellite even too, so just the whole skabo as far as OG hardware and experience could be had. And then, of course, in our couch co-op that we just ran semi-successfully before we jumped on here for this recording, I was retroarching Nestopia standard controller, Parsec, yada yada yada. How did you play? I presume the same way, yes.
Yep, same way. NES-topia RetroArch with the standard controller.
Word. Please rate and review the pod if you enjoy us struggling to couch co-op via Parsec on video, or the way the podcast goes, or just whatever you might enjoy about the dumb shit we do on this feed. Please do let us know via those means. What are we jamming on now, Jay? What are you jamming on now?
So, I mean, it's been a pretty quiet week for Xbox, if you can imagine. Quiet couple weeks, nothing. Going on.
I was going to ask you. I meant to ask if we were. I was going to ask if you were gainfully employed still. Actually, was.
Thankfully, yes, definitely. Thankfully, yes. So no comment further. But yeah, it's as a result of just being a little busier than normal. I've played, a lot more Call of Duty Zombies when I could. Parents are in town, so didn't get a lot of playing in. But the new season dropped of that, so there's a lot more missions, a lot of extra stuff. Mega Abominations walking around the Tier 2 zone, which threw me off, but was also exciting and awesome because they're supposed to be in Tier 3 only. You're not supposed to have these things just walking through the medium threat zone ready to just stomp you immediately. So it was pretty cool, pretty exciting.
You slipping.
Yeah, a good thing we were plated up, dog bow and everything. We were geared up when that happened. So everybody was, I was running with the guys too. So we were all ready. Hey, focus. He's like, there's a Mega Abomination. I'm like, what do you mean? Because I was inside a building, looting something. He's like, there's a Mega Abomination outside. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what do you mean? What do I mean? So I went outside and I was like, what? So it was pretty awesome. And then a second one showed up. And so, some fun, different stuff happening, which is good to keep the game fresh. Outside of that, man, I don't know about you. I'm assuming not, but just a lot of Power World. Have you played it? Do you even know what I'm talking about, Josh?
It's Pokemon, is it not? It's Pokemon. I know everyone keeps saying no, it's not Pokemon. But it's Pokemon. You're catching Pokemon.
You're definitely doing Pokemon things by catching things. That is an aspect for sure. It's but the base of it is really an action adventure, survival monster taming game. You definitely tame them, but they work for you in your base. It's much more base building. I find myself wanting to get in, to log on rather, just to see how much more of the base that I can build. It started off as not a big aspect of the game, and I was like, just build a little house because I need a bed to sleep in or whatever. But then
that's how they always get you. That's how the base building always gets you.
And it was in a corner, because I was like, oh, I'm just excited to go out and explore this world and catch these pals. But then when I realized a lot of them have special things that are unique to them that you can only find out in the world once you craft them and unlock them later, but you got to do other things to do it. And there's bosses. And so it's kind of like your open world game, but if there were Pokemon, it would probably be the greatest Pokemon game ever sold. If it was Pokemon, but it's not. It's these pals and they have weapons and they are you can evolve them and pick them up and use them in different ways. Instead of hey, I'm taking the Pokemon or the pal and throwing it. Pokemon, I always do that, by the way. Always do that. if I take the PAL and throw it,
from everything I heard and everything you're saying now, it sounds justifiable, Jay. I don't think you
exactly. I mean, the characters are different. I mean, they obviously have different kind of powers and things. Like some of them have submachine guns and they just get out and use on their own. But like if you unlock a certain ability, they just stand on you and constantly like shoot their submachine guns. So like it's just different things like that. And you can have one that like you can put a collar on it and it always stays by your side. So you can like have another one go like fight at the same time. So it's almost like, I don't know, man. It's people talk about Ark. I don't know if you've ever played Ark or a game like that, but just heavy base building, heavy open world.
Honestly, what you're describing, this is going to be nothing to you, but what you're describing makes me think of Dungeon Keeper and War of the Overworld, I believe, was what the like.
Well, you went way deep.
Kind of not, these are, but those are, I loved those games, and they were very much that way. You had to build certain things in your base to curate certain types of parts of your army, and, you know, I'm sure infinitely more simplified rather than all the ins and outs of this, but that concept, I know exactly that feeling of like, I got to build this. I'm going to need more of this to get more of those. And I know exactly what we're talking about here as far as the internal mechanisms. Yep.
And it's, I never thought, like one of the things because I play so many open world games nowadays, right? There's so many of them, whether you're talking about Assassin's Creed, Zelda, like whatever it is, so many of them. So when you can, and because of that, I think some games have failed when they have like failed to vary the enemies that you fight in those open world, like Marvel's Avengers. Great game, like gameplay wise is very fun to me, but like you just kept fighting robots over and over and over. It's like, come on, you gotta, like, this is not fun. What are we doing? Like, do you just not want us to kill people? That's why we're not fighting any varied people, like enemies. You're just giving us different robots. Like it was super annoying. But this, obviously, if you're catching Pokemon, like, ooh, you want to catch them all. Like the PALs are kind of similar. Like when I'm out in the open world and I'm just trying to explore or get to a certain point of like POV and I see different kind of PALs, I'm like, oh, I definitely got to go catch them because I don't know like what kind of PAL this is going to be, because they also do different things in your base. Some of them are like handiwork. Some of them do like farming, some, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, I need different kinds of PALs to like be in my base. And I even built this overlook tower, which I'm not going to use upon further inspection, but you could to either like make them work normally, work them hard, work them even harder, and like their sanity goes down the harder you work them, and like they start getting depressed and like upset and like it's great. I love it, but I'm like, no, I want to keep them like productive so they can build me. Things.
That was again. Old comparison, but one of the funnest things about Dungeon Keeper was because they would kind of, your minions would kind of fuck off, might not be doing the thing that you want them doing, training or whatever it would be, and like you could slap them. You could just like you had a hand, you had a hand, you could just slap them and be like, get back to fucking go do the thing I told you to do, and they would get their shit together and go do it.
See, me being the gentle ruler, I go and pet them, you know, and then they like start smiling. It does like the Animal Crossing thing where they like do like an emote and like little roses and things, you know. So it does the cute things that like draw you in with the cute pals, and then you can take them. And,
Asgard's
like,
Wrath got that too. You're trying to befriend all the not only befriend but advance the befriendment tree of like not bind but bind,
like your relationship.
Yeah, you're like building your relationship
connection.
That's.
So it's a blast, man. It's and me and Jesse, like it's open world, so you can invite people in. So, you know, my brother started playing with me and I got him hooked, which is awesome. So we went out and fought the first boss together. And, you know, I wanted to see what that would be like. And of course it was a blast, you know, big boss fight. You go in and it kind of shows an arena where there's like a PAL and then like they throw the ball and their giant PAL jumps out. And of course, they're like 5 times as tall as you.
It even has like a ball, like a Pokeball.
Yeah. They're PAL spheres. You got to throw them and catch the PAL.
Why are people even trying to say that there's any? I hear the dialogue, I hear the chatter in my periphery of like, yo, it's not Pokemon. Like, that's fucking Pokemon. What do you mean?
Definitely.
If you're not even going to do the work to like change the device that you catch them with, that's insane.
I
think Nintendo should be suing them too. Then what the fuck? And I'm the least litigious person on the planet.
Yeah, obviously the way you're talking about it sounds like Pokemon. When you play it, it's like, oh, you throw a ball, it catches it, like that's a Pokemon similar. There's enough different that when you're playing it, you're like, yeah, this feels actually very, very different to like a Pokemon game. Like that is like a thing that Pokemon does. Yes, that is from Pokemon, but otherwise it feels completely different of a game. Honestly.
Okay.
But it's great. To each their own, like it's still great.
Maybe. Is it coming to VR?
Of course, the standard next question is well, considering this,
I've never gotten into Pokemon. Have you ever played Pokemon?
No.
I don't think we've ever had the discussion. Have you ever played any Pokemon games?
You know what? Outside of Pokemon Go,
same. Yeah,
doesn't really count.
Too. Just because it was
such a thing.
It was such a thing, but also so little friction to get going.
I'm outside. I'm going to be outside anyway.
It's on my phone. Exactly. It's just a phone app. Yeah, same thing. That's the only time I've ever engaged Pokemon in any way, shape, or form either. So it's interesting to me because everything about it sounds like the kind of thing I like all those types of collecting. Like I feel
everything
like
about love this. Yeah,
everything else about it is 100% my wheelhouse. It's just some sort of like it's probably just my cunty like too many people do it thing. Like I'm just not doing it just because it can't be as good as this many people think it is. Thereby, no.
You would. The funny thing is, Jesse was against it at first too. He was like, nah, and then finally he was like, all right, I've read up about it. I'll just give it a try. Then it was like, all right, what's the code to your world? And then we're like the raw, you know what I mean? Then it's like, we got to go fight a boss. It was great. You just get sucked in. It's just, I can't describe it because it sounds like. It's one of those things, I don't know the history of it. It sounds like there was like a whole cult following leading up to it. And it's still in preview. So keep in mind, people have bought this thing and it's still in preview knowing that there's bugs and like they're still working on it. But it's still fun. Like I thought, because of other game previews that have come out, I expected the game to be even more limited than it is. But if like, because of that, I just haven't expanded and like explored out there. So there's so much more to it than even I have seen yet. I don't even like read about it or watch things on YouTube because I don't want them spoiled. I got to experience it myself. So I highly recommend it. You have an Xbox.
Do I?
Turn it on.
I honestly
I don't want to even hear that you got rid of it. It's going to hurt my ears. I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry if you tell me you got rid of it.
For some reason or another, like we have this center, like this, I don't know what to call it, like some sort of dining coffee table fucking thing that holds all the remotes and game controllers and stuff. And for the longest time, it had both the Oculus sets of controllers in it, the two Xbox controllers, and the Pro Switch controller. Like all of them were there. Probably a month or so ago, all the other controllers got put away. I just took them all out and put them in the drawer where all my other junk is. Xbox and Switch both. The controllers got thrown in the junk drawer.
That hurts, man.
That's how much. Well, I mean,
how much you love VR. You're just in love with VR. You're obsessed with VR.
I heard Microsoft is getting rid of their Xbox too. So if they don't even care about it, why should I?
Don't believe the news, Josh. Don't believe the news.
Okay, word. Anything up? Power World and
that's it. Power World and COD Zombies, man. That's been the bulk. I tried to dip my toe back into Diablo 4 last night, but I was too tired. I started it way too late because I know that's a new season that I've missed, and I want to jump back in because that game is still freaking fun.
Okay. Well, Asgard's Wrath is still dominating my gaming landscape, but this motherfucking game deleted my save, Jay! This game deleted my fucking save! I was like, I don't know, 50 hours in, and it deleted the save. And I didn't know. I found something out that you should hear, and everyone who has a fucking an Oculus or Quest or whatever should hear. There is a cloud save function that you just log into your Meta account, and you can just reload a cloud save backup to your device. The problem is, it only keeps one for every application. And if you go too long after the moment when you want to have restored, it will have saved a new one onto it, particularly if you use the app all the fucking time. So I didn't know about this thing's existence until it was too late, and I couldn't restore my save prior to this deletion happening. Dude, I was wrecked, dude. I was wrecked. So I think, and again, I don't have any way to
That's rough.
I don't have any scientific proof of this is what happened, but I think it did this crash thing that honestly it happened a bunch with the first one via that PCVR shit. Has not happened with this one really much at all. A couple of times really, and it's not even crashing. It's just it locks up. It locks your view, but you can still keep looking around, and it's just black area around that view where it locked up, right? So if you let it go long enough, I think it will fix itself on this, on 2. And I don't think I let it do that. And on top of that, it happened when I was it must have been the most anomalous of things to make this all happen, but it happened when I was materializing after a fast travel, and I think it saves on all fast travels. So I think it basically locked up mid-save, and I power cycled it because I didn't wait for it to get back. So I think it corrupted the save period. So this happens, and I turn it back on after the power cycle, and it just it's acting like I just installed it, and I'm like, I don't even know how to describe my inner turmoil. I'm like, what the fuck? It has to do this. I don't even know. It's called compiling shaders. I don't know what's happening. It's this number that will count very fast when you start the app sometimes at the bottom of the screen. But the first time you installed it, it's a higher number and it counted slower. So it was doing that, and I'm like, what the fuck? And it gets all the way through that. And then I start the game, and it takes me to the tutorial thing, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" And I'm emailing and tweeting and fucking, I lost my shit. What the fuck? Send all this shit and fucking, nothing. Don't get any information. And then the next day, I think to check the Discord, which is where everyone puts this information now. And I hate that fucking app, so I never think to check it, and I never use it. And if I'd have went there, I'd have found this. There's some guy trolling through there telling people about this fucking cloud backup thing that you can use. And the game has one in it too. You can wind back your saves in the game also, but in this case it had corrupted it, so it didn't even exist. There was nothing to roll back to in the app, which I tried that when I was doing all my various troubleshooting on my own, but so fuck, dude. Yeah, I lost it. I glass half fulled it on the basis that I understand how the game works now. So my character builds, my follower builds, and all the skills and stuff, I can build them more knowledgeably and less aimlessly, which is true, and I think that is going better. But, I'm
50 hours?
Yeah, dude, I'm 2 weeks later, probably, and I'm just almost back to where I was, probably, playing a ton, and yeah, it was just so heart-wrenching, dude. I don't even know how to describe how and I was
surprised you went back and did it again.
The game's too good, dude. The game's too good. I couldn't do it. I'm on pins and needles. It did that. It did I don't know. I think it got updated or something the other day, and it did a weird shader thing when I was loading the game. I was like, the whole time it was happening, I was fucking death grip on everything. This fucking thing.
Better go.
Yeah, if it fucking doesn't load, I'm gonna lose it. Thankfully, not the case though.
I feel like that's a stressful situation now. Every time you play the game, you're
right. But, and I think now though that I have that cloud backup knowledge, and even if it does happen again, theoretically, I think I can fix my life. But it's just so fucking rough, dude. Here's the wild thing. So I restart it, and there's these things that are called rift battles or something. Basically, you're just walking around the world, and out of nowhere, this portal will open. And the 3 god ladies that are kind of the
fates kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't even know how they're the ones that are kind of most loosely guiding your god form through this quest.
Okay.
And Loki creates these rifts, and you have to go into them and kill everything in them, and then they can seal them back up, basically, once you kill the stuff that's in the rift. So they're basically like these little arena battles, bonus stage kind of things. And you get treasures at the end of them and shit, and just whatever items. So I've done a million of these in the last playthrough, and they're all just normal. You go in, it's just like another stage in the game, do it, whatever, come back out, and you go back to the normal game. I go and visit my buddy Will. The one we watched the Cavs games with at Fort Irwin, and he already beat the game in like 2 weeks. Yeah, I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Yeah, he's already beat it, and he's talking about there being an AR function for it, like an AR aspect to it, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, the Rift things." I'm like, "Dude, I played like 50 hours before
this."
What
do you mean?
Yeah, what are you talking about? So I guess some of these are AR things. So you go into them, and then before the battle starts, you have to grab this thing, and it kind of explains to you that you're going to be doing these portals. And once you grab the item, it goes to AR pass-through mode where you can see your room.
What?
And these windows, it kind of like, it sounds awesome.
Oh,
and it is like kind of.
You were talking about this in a different game, I remember.
Well, that tech demo thing, it's the same concept, but that eventually opens up to the whole space. Everything, right? Like you eventually knock out all the walls and your room goes away, and that's just like a slow progress towards that. You start in your room and then the walls start falling away. This, it just keeps opening up a new window in your room, and then enemies, you can see a few enemies in it, and then sometimes they'll run through the portal at you, and you have to. But the problem is you're locked in place. You can't move around necessarily, which means you have to rely on melee combat, which is not really how I play the game. I use a lot of ranged battling, you know.
So you can't have like bow and arrow?
You can, but you can't move away from them to keep distance. So you can shoot your bow and arrow with them right on top of you, but they're going to be smashing the shit out of you. So
I see.
So it's a little fucked in that regard. I've had the first one, I was like, this kind of sucks because of that. I've had a few more now, and I don't know why they're happening now and didn't happen before. Like I said, I played the shit out of the game. I don't do anything different other than going faster because I know what I'm doing. You know, but I don't know what I could possibly be doing to catalyze these happening this time and not the last time I was playing the game.
Wait, so you didn't change anything?
I didn't change anything.
They're just happening anyway?
I mean, they haven't happened, but it's been maybe 2 or 3 times, you know, and I'm almost to the same place, but they didn't happen at all before. So yeah, I don't know what the difference is there. But the thing is, having to battle the way those force you to battle has also taught me some things. I've learned a few things I can do in melee combat that makes it more enjoyable and effective. So even though I was kind of pissed or irritated about them at first, it's kind of forced me to learn some new combat mechanics, parrying things and fight, like knocking projectiles back at enemies that fire things at you. Mm-hmm. So they've kind of forced me to probably become a better player too. But it is, it's an awesome idea, like I said, in concept, but I wish there was some way for you to still have some mobility, so you could kind of fight the way you want to.
I still find it fascinating that you had not experienced these before.
I do too.
Until you read about it.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
It's somebody was watching and they're like, "Oh, he found out the truth. We got to send him in. We got to unlock the special mode for him. He found out it exists." Like, what is this? Like,
I don't see how it's possible, dude. Because I mean, I'm telling you, when Will said that, I do have 50. Loving this game, played 50 hours, just went through this already like really traumatic experience. It just happened right before I went out to visit him, and then he tells me this earth-shattering function that I hadn't even seen. I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? You know? Yeah, pretty wild.
Lies, deceptions.
But now that I'm back on track, fucking, you know.
Good stuff.
It's such a good game, dude. It's so fucking good. I hope I don't lose my save again. So played a bunch of that. That's really it for games. I tried, I wanted to sit down the other night and started playing a little bit of Expect You to Die 3 again, that escape room spy themed escape room game. That I had gotten on sale a while back, and fucked with it a little bit, but it's basically just been all Asgard's Wrath. I did the Let's Talk Oculus pod mentioned this documentary. You got to get this, dude. It's fucking so good. They mentioned this JFK documentary that is available on there now. It's a VR documentary. So it's like 35 minutes. 5 eps between like 5 and 8 minutes each. And dude.
JFK?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like, it's not like I'm like fucking
history buff.
I mean, I do like history. I mean, I might be a history buff, but I'm not like a JFK nut or anything. Yeah. You know, I'm not like, it is certainly interesting that the president got his head blown off and there's video of it and it's like such a thing. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, but I'm definitely not like a JFK fanatic. And because there's all sorts of shit. And, you know, again, I do like history and I've certainly watched JFK documentaries before, but there's a bunch of shit in there I did not know. But it's VR, dude. So they have taken photographs of various, you know, they have part of it's out on the street. So you're like walking through this little part of Dallas where the car fucking motorcade goes through. And like you see how, you know, like you've seen all those videos a million times. You hear about the grassy knoll and like all the fucking from the window, all that shit. You hear all that. You can even watch flat screen documentaries.
Yeah. Completely
different to be there and see it all happen and understand the dynamic of the space and how it all went down, you know? So like super fast, but they take actual photographs from the day in the moment. And there was just like, they even interviewed the one woman who was just down there taking pictures. And like, I guess her pictures are some of the more famous stills of the moments. And they take the photographs, they put them on the screen, and then they paint a VR world around it and then eventually consume the photo with a VR. So it's like, I don't know, dude. It's just really well done. And, you know, they go up into the building, the book depository, and they're in the fucking space at the window and they have the photo of the shells on the ground that the fucking cops took and the window, the little stack of boxes that he had put the rifle on. And then they show you that photo and then they paint the world around it and you see the actual space that this happened in, you know, and you can fucking move around it and look at like around the fucking boxes and shit, dude. It's fucking nuts, dude. It is so fucking cool. And it's just the you know, the first layer of what VR can do for documentary stuff like this, but it is so fucking good. Yeah, and they go out on the grassy, on this actual, where this supposedly another shooter could have been. And it's not really even a speculative documentary at all. They're just kind of showing you, because there was another, either photography or some sort of other footage or something was captured from where supposedly this other shooter could have been. And they like show him like he was standing on this like stone pillar and they like put your POV there and like show you look down and see his feet and like see the vantage point that the pictures he took, and you can see the woman that had the other pictures in his fucking photograph or whatever. So it's like it just links it all together in this really, you know, in a 3D space, so your mind can really understand exactly how it all happened, you know. And they go to the fucking hospital. They're talking, they interview a bunch of people. The fucking lead detective in Dallas, who was like, you know, he's like a fucking, I think, like late 20s guy or something. There was no reason for this dude. He had no like resume to warrant being the lead detective or one of the lead detectives on the assassination of the U.S. president. You know what I mean? He just happened to be the Dallas guy who got assigned it, you know, and he's lived a whole crazy ass life as a result of it. So, just really cool and insightful interviews and stuff. And the interviews too, you know, they're VR interviews. So you're looking at them talk in a VR, you're like in their living room with them as they're talking. They take you out into, I guess he had been his Lee Harvey Oswald's wife and his kid. They had split up and she was staying with this friend at the time this happened. And he came over to their house the day before, unannounced, which usually he would call before he would come over. And this woman she was staying with didn't like him. He was like they were split up for reasons, I'm sure, and I'm sure her story was not a positive one of Lee Harvey Oswald. So this woman who owned the house hated him. So he came over unannounced the day before, and she didn't realize it, but he had already been in the garage before he came in and talked to them or anything. And she didn't realize that till later or the day after or something. And this is where the fucking rifle had been stored, dude. They go out there and the wife knew that he had a rifle out there, and like I didn't know any of that. Like, you know, there's like, though I don't know about what you've heard of that story, but like, you know, it's like he shot him, but like there was like, in my mind, they never necessarily had like some like really concrete proof. Otherwise, what the fuck are we talking about here? You know what I mean? Yeah, but like, no, the wife's like, yeah, he had a fucking rifle. It was in the fucking garage. It's in this blanket that was wrapped up. The blanket's there now, and the gun's gone. You know, and it's the same kind of rifle that shot the fucking president and they had the shells for, and yada yada. Like, there's just no. It took all the, I don't know,
questions
out of it completely. And again, I've watched a million of these things. Well, not a million, but a lot of them. And how have I never heard any of that? So just a good documentary, even if it wasn't in a VR format, where you're like, again, you're like literally in the garage looking at the fucking photograph of the blanket where they fucking, the rifle was, you know? It's just like, it's nuts, dude. Just so crazy to be able to essentially relive something like that, created from still photographs from 50 years ago. Just nuts, dude. So fucking cool. Such a cool thing.
Nice.
Yeah, so I cannot recommend that enough. And again, it's only 35 minutes, you know. Episodes even. You can watch it episodically. Very cool. I got requested to do a Quest focus group, dude. I did it yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. They have an office right, it's like 8 minutes from my house. So they emailed me about this, and I saw where it was. I was like, fuck yeah, I'll do that. And like this dude, they were not fucking ready for this. They were not ready for me to come in there and do this, dude. Like, I go in there, and it's like, this woman's like, so this woman's like, I don't know, man. I'd guess she was probably late 20s, maybe, you know, and she's just like, you know, just like reading
what
things
did
off.
you do, Josh?
Yeah. Well, she's like reading things off paper. Just, you know, she was certainly not like the most, I don't know, socially.
Is this her first focus group? Is this her
No, I mean, no, she didn't. It wasn't like she didn't know what she was doing. It's just like, you know, she's like kind of like a, I don't know, like a rigid office worker. She's not like not ready to have a conversation with my loud ass, basically. You know, especially like this, where like she expects, you know, she comes in and she like gives me this spiel about like, you know, because it's testing. I'm not allowed to talk about any of the specifics, but it's like testing new features in the UI and stuff is what we were doing, and some of that shit might not work right because it's just prototype stuff. So she's like, starts it with this like spiel about how, like, you know, if anything doesn't work the way you want it, or you don't have answers to the questions I'm asking you, it's not your fault necessarily. This is a prototype. I'm like, yeah. Right. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. like I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel at all times. Yeah. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't worry about any of that. Let's go. You know. So we do all their stuff, and then there was a component towards the end that was like related to the social stuff, you know, in the UI, and which I've told you before, like that's like, it's so bad. It's such their UI. I have so many complaints about the UI in general. Social aspects of it are horrific. And like we do this like short little thing, and like, you know, when it first pops up, I'm like, oh yes, the social shit. Like, let's go. I got so much to say. You know, and like it's just like this one little quick thing at the end. We do that, and then she's like, okay, we're done. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, no. I got let's go. I got way more to say about this. like she was just not like, you know,
wait,
like,
I'm in the room. Yeah, I got my opportunity.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was like, no, we got to talk about this. I got fucking solutions for you. We got to fucking, you know, hilarious, dude. And she's like, well, you know, I'll put you on the list. Like she's like, I got a feeling we'll call you again. But yeah, she was not ready for the amount of opinions I think I was bringing to the table for that.
Nice.
So that was cool.
Add value. I like it.
Yeah, dude. Like, yeah, the idea of having direct input. I don't know if I've ever told this story, but I did one of those focus groups for a bank. I think it was Chase Bank, actually, in New York. I think I was, and I think I fucked up credit card stuff for people. Like, so I had for a long time been on this hustle with my credit cards back when I had to carry balances because I was broke as fuck, where I was just applying for new cards every 6 months, getting the introductory, and I've been doing that for years, dude. Just get a new card for 6 or 12 months, 0% APR, transfer the balance, and just you're constantly on 0% APR. And dude, I went in there, I am not exaggerating the fucking slightest, dude. I did that. I went and did that thing, that focus group, and it was a very small amount of time, like inside of a few months, that went away. They stopped doing that. They changed it to where there was a fee for the balance transfer. Which didn't used to be the case, you know? So they, you know, and I don't have any proof of this, but it sure is fishy that I was like the master hustler of that for years. I go in and dumbly say something about it in one focus group for Chase Bank, and the whole system changes. I was like, I think I ruined my own fucking hustle by being honest.
You closed the loophole.
Group. Right.
Thank God, Josh.
So fucked. So, yeah. So my point being that saying shit in those things can change things. So hopefully I can make the fucking the UI of Meta better by participating in these fucking things. We shall see. TBD. The only other thing I had service. Yes, absolutely. The only other thing I had was a Caveman Gaming update, which I shared in the fucking in the thread. Subnautica 3's tweet about co-op Subnautica. How fucking exciting is that, Jay? How have you not played those games either? How have you not played that or Outer Wilds? How have you not done either of these things?
Well, I dipped my toe in Outer Wilds, but there was so much other stuff at the time. Like, I think I was a new Xbox employee. Like, there was so much going on, it just kind of got lost, honestly.
You gotta redo it. Gotta get on. I'm still.
I will agree. I do need to do that.
I just got on another side tangent within the last week where I've been watching videos of people's responses to playing it for the first time, and just people rambling for hours about how it's fucking, you know, they can't even put into words its emotional impact on them, and yada yada yada. Like,
oh my gosh.
Searching for tweets and shit. I'm just like on a whole new kick just because, and it is. It's just like I'm just like. I sit and listen to people talk about it, and it just makes me sad that I can't go to that place again because it is just this one-time experience. Yeah, you cannot replicate that again once you experience it. But Subnautica, not quite that, but close. And the idea of being able to co-op that is pretty fucking cool.
If they make it co-op.
Well, I will play. Based on that tweet, it's 100% happening because people were bitching about it, saying they were worried it was going to ruin the one-player experience or diminish it in some way. And they were like, no. It's like co-op's going to be an additive feature. You can play it and enjoy it as a one-player thing just the same, no problem. Which is funny.
I'm all for co-op adventures and exploration. So if that's what happens, I will jump in. And we can explore the freaky underwater ocean simultaneously.
Fine. If that happens, Jay, fine. I'll dig my Xbox controllers out of the junk drawer, I suppose.
That is Select Team from NES Play Action Football, bringing us into the ep. Let's go.
Choose from 8 powerful teams packed with real pro players. Pick your play or defense, then knuckle down for head-banging action. Miss a key block and risk a sack. Pick the right play for a big gain. But watch out for that tightening defense. Zone coverage can eliminate the long ball. We learned that in our 2-player co-op. It's realistic, hardcore football, and you make the decisions. Your backfield is tired. Do you substitute? That last pass was complete, and they're measuring it. It's 4th and inches with seconds to go. Do you go for it? It's a 4th down showdown at the NES Power Bowl. And that is all on the back of the box. There's not a single solitary ink dot of printing dedicated to Story World and the manual, which kind of surprised me. You know, most of these games, even the sports ones, they're still trying to like some table setting effort. Nope, they're like, it's simulation. Like, you're playing football. You know what the fuck football is. Go play football.
That's what you're here to do. We all know it. Let's go.
Right. And that is the format as well. I don't think we've needed to bother with that. Yeah. So the release for this is September 1990 via Nintendo's R&D 3 division. And that was after all too many delays and false starts, on this release, nearly a year of false promises before it finally dropped. So they took their time with it, which we kind of just talked about. Yeah, I hadn't realized that, but we mentioned it in the couch co-op, how this, in that interview I did with Greg Lauder, this was the first Nintendo of America proprietary release. Everything else had been developed in Japan and then ported or brought over to the U.S., localized to the U.S. So this was the first one that they ever had to figure out the whole flowchart of here, and you can kind of see it, I guess, really in hindsight. And I hadn't thought about that, and that's really interesting, I think.
I mean, it kind of makes sense too that the first American game that they made is football. Like what like we're making our American debut. What is more American, like besides
football,
making like a baseball game? Football. There you go.
Yeah. But that's that's about right when I think that continental shift was happening, though. I think baseball. Right around this time is when football overtook baseball as.
Yeah, because it was all America's pastime, and I was like, because I loved it too, but then it was kind of like, I watched the Reds win the World Series and all that, but then kind of after that, I was like, all right, I like football, definitely college football, and it was like, yeah, football's way more fun.
I never thought about that either. I have mentioned how like the 1990 Super Bowl and 1991 were. Well, 1991 was my first season where I was really into it, like literally like getting the Miller Lite score books that were at the grocery store out of the display and writing down the scores every week. That was 1991 that I first did that. And I never thought about, like I just kind of said that casually, that shift of kind of sports media dominance or whatever, kind of spitballing that happened about then. But the idea that might have like literally been when it happened and it got its hooks into me, that's crazy to think that. I don't know, that I might have been at the right age for that to happen right when they would have, right when they were really trying to make it happen.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely. That's when the football sets blew up too, 89, 90, when like Pro Set and them came out. So that makes a lot of sense, man.
Dude, I had all the baseball cards albums up until then, but then around 91, then I kind of just fell off of that. Like I still played basketball, but like going to games and like consuming otherwise sports, I was like, I think football is more interesting and more exciting, like it just took over completely.
And it was definitely, that was the thing too, like at school, basketball was still bigger, I think. To like, I'm saying to like the kids that like were like the cool kids in my view in like fourth grade when this was happening. Basketball was still a little bigger, maybe football and basketball right there. Yeah, but baseball was definitely like a distant whatever third.
Because you had Jordan. Jordan was like, oh yeah, he's the man.
Dude,
like of course.
I remember arguing with motherfuckers about Jordan and Dominique and fucking
1990
the
madness.
1990 hoops basketball cards. It's just it's fucking crazy. So yeah, huge basketball and football, both huge. In any event, the cover art for this, there is behind Jay right now. It's the front illustration has a running back going up over a huge pileup of players at the line, and this scenario could only happen as depicted on like a 4th and inches. Goal line play, It's the only time this would ever happen in an actual football game. And there are multiple offensive linemen trying to get some push down below. A few defenders trying to climb that pile to meet the ball carrier at at his high point, I guess. And you choose realistic offensive and tough defensive strategies as their pitch line below the title, clearly stressing the simulation aspect of this game right from the Toys R Us aisle. And it's emblazoned with the 4-player game iconography. An obvious huge selling point for the game, being able to play 2-player versus 2-player. And how I never really looked at it, like I've seen it a million times, but again, just micro-analyzing. That 4-player fucking logo is really cool, dude. It's using that negative space in the 2-color design to create 4 faces next to the number 4. Like that's a really smart and cool logo design. So
it catches your eyes on the box. You notice it and you're like, oh, 4-player. Sure. Oh, I can play with my cousins. Oh, let's go.
Yeah. But it's, again, even yes, eye-catching, but just again, really parsing it, like it really communicates the message, which not all logos do.
Artists do it,
right? Yeah. So dude, look at this picture and think about how football works. Look at the field. Look at its orientation in the stadium, and then look how the players are oriented in the action.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any fucking sense, dude.
Unless somehow it's like they're going forward, but people are getting pushed. The defense is trying to push them backwards,
Right,
but it's
he's
going
kind of
sideways.
pushed off his point of attack.
Yeah, like
I
you're
mean,
pushing sideways. That's the
funny,
only way this works.
You're always coming up with, you are always able to find a solution for insanity in these things, and that's hilarious. Good for you. Because so the ball carrier appears to be diving over that pile perpendicular to our POV from left to right, and our view of the field puts our POV positioned in one end zone, maybe right in front of the goalpost, looking directly towards the opposite goalpost. So like perfectly down the middle of the field, basically. And they're moving left to right, player-wise, or the running back is with the ball. So, this running back is essentially diving towards the sideline, not towards a first down or touchdown. So, sure, who cares? It's just some fucking goofy-ass sports cover shit. It doesn't really matter. There's a bunch of goofy-ass shit on RBI2 as well, if you recall. The shit didn't make sense where, like, the player's hand was in the base and the home base and all that. But, when I really started looking at it, I was like, this fucking is weird.
You know what's interesting? Nowadays, if you produced a picture like this, people would say, "Oh, that was AI generated. Look at that. It's not right." Right? Yeah. Like you'd be like, "Oh, that's not right." Because
there's no human intuition there.
Right. Like a human would never do that.
Yeah. No human rationale. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's fascinating.
So interestingly, too, dude. So and again, we're just I love doing this podcast for this reason, but we're digging up the fact that. It is their first U.S. thing, and they just don't know how to do anything. Or not even that they don't. This is even a testament to not knowing how to do anything. This is a testament to not having just a way of doing things yet. But this art is signed by someone. It's signed by one P. The letter P is in Paul Howell, or that last letter might be an E. So Howe maybe, but either way, it's signed by someone, and. You don't get that for most of the other. A lot of these things are illustrated, and you don't get that. So it's interesting that is on the box cover here. You can see that. It's also interesting that I couldn't find anything about this individual, so that was kind of a bummer. I was hoping I'd be able to see some sort of work through line of you had done a bunch of NES work, and we finally got a name or something, but not the case. The back of the box is a standard 3-banger as far as the pictures go. There's a shot of the play view on the field, the substitution screen, and a shot of the scoreboard you get when you score a rushing tutty. And the NFLPA logo is back here because we have the player names and likenesses in the game. And then that copy blurb I already rattled off. And we will talk more about that player's license here in a moment. The manual is, again, their first launch title, essentially, for the publishing division of Nintendo of America. It's not surprising, I suppose, but they don't fuck around with this manual at all. It is 40 pages, full color, and, they're just, it's the whole fucking, there's no corners cut here.
I was surprised there was so much in it, honestly.
Yep.
I was shocked at the length.
Yep. For sure. They didn't leave no stone unturned as far as the functionality goes. The cover is just a solid football field grass green with the title treatment and that aforementioned cool-ass 4-player logo. And there's, it's just every possible aspect of football is explained to you in here, how the game interprets it and employs it. Some of the highlights of all that shit is pages 14 to 17 are pretty cute illustrated explanations of offensive and special team moments, and for every one of these, you get illustrations of the players doing the things and then pictures of the gamepad showing you what things, because there is a ton of that in this game of like multi-button depressions to give you as much functionality as it does give you, which is still at times frustratingly limited because it's just an NES controller, but they do, I think, as much as they probably could have to give you all the different things that you want to do or could want to do as like from a football strategy perspective. If you don't know what football is, I think this would do an all right job of explaining how to do football.
It's pretty solid. Like it was more detailed. Like I said, more detailed than I expected. Like you're really thorough here. Like okay, I got it. Like maybe 10-year-old Jerry needed that. Maybe so.
But dude, that was probably we've talked a lot before how I think Tecmo's popularity and ultimate dominance over this as a NES football title, I think, is predicated a lot in the usability. Just like it's action oriented or arcade oriented, and a lot of this shit is just they just fuck any of that. It's just have them run around. So like it's just like RPGs. It's not for everyone because there's just so many layers of like actual effort to replicate the cerebral part of football and playing this game. And then page 21 has the same stuff for defense, those illustrations and shit. Pages 26 and 27 get into the player data attribute numbers and meters you can see on player profiles and how they translate to gameplay. And this is pretty interesting and I think worthy of an explanation. So it's rather obvious, but there's one note at the end that was particularly interesting. So it says data not on display, and they say FS, which free safety, though I presume this probably applies to all safeties, strong safeties and free safeties both. But they can tackle, but they don't have a tackle meter. And it's just speed and what maybe hands, I think it is the other one that is shown. But they obviously have a tackling capability. So apparently all free safeties have average tackle level in the game. So that's worth, from a strategy angle, I guess, that means they're going to always be lower than like your better linebackers and defensive linemen on the
target
tackling.
them.
Right, you don't want to be trying to make maybe like important open field tackles with your safeties. Linebacker, cornerback, defensive tackle, and nose tackle can all intercept. However, the level is the same for all of them on hands. So same flip side to that, basically. And it's super interesting to me that cornerbacks are included in that, because cornerbacks are probably should be at least as, if not more.
Yeah, I would think that'd be solid. Yeah.
Or at least be capable of being solid,
right?
Or good, So that's kind of a tough. And they had to make decisions here, business decisions, but that one could have been swapped. I think cornerbacks probably should have been pushed into that free safety or the safety category on that. Though this made me think about there's the old football joke that all cornerbacks are basically wide receivers with shitty hands, and that's why they become cornerbacks.
Exactly.
So maybe they were trying to play on that joke with that decision. Everything else in here is pretty straightforward explanations of how to play football within the construct of the game code, though. Not a ton of shit that we can, would need to explain here if you know how to play football. And you shouldn't be coming to this podcast to learn how to play football.
Agreed.
Yeah. So talk to me about notable history and Game Genie codes that didn't make you feel like you were cheating, even though maybe it sounds like you kind of wanted to, maybe.
I mean, it's funny because the Game Genie codes that I found, yes, I definitely felt like I wanted to cheat. Like, give me some 99 power or something. But I sadly did not find such codes. The only codes that I found were 30-minute quarter codes, 10-minute quarters, no timeouts for player 2.
Fuck? These games are so long. How would you want to play 30-minute quarters?
Exactly. I'm like, that
game would take 2 hours, dude.
Exactly.
Like, if you
or 6 timeouts per half. You can do that one, too.
Okay. That's kind of interesting. That might even not make me feel like I was cheating, because the clock is fucking. It thankfully does. It cooks to offset how them being 15 minutes maybe, and give it like I said, if you burn through a game of this, it still takes like 40 minutes. And if I would be playing, like I would make breakfast and like just because it thankfully you could once it gets to that menu screen at the start of every play. There's no clock or anything, and you can just let it sit there like that. So I would fucking be playing and like play a quarter, go make breakfast, and fucking come back and so that's how, if you play it that way, some of these games took me like 2.5 hours to get through, so.
Dude, yeah.
I can't imagine wanting to extend the quarters. That is bonkers.
That is nuts, right? Like that. Yeah, I don't know. Craziness to me. It's funny to me too, like this game, it was ported to the Game Boy, and received a follow-up to the Super Nintendo called Super Play Action Football. And it's fascinating because as much as I remember this game, the diagonal screen, because it was done that way because it was meant to be like isometrically, like more 3D looking. Mm-hmm. But I oddly enough remember the Game Boy version a lot. Did you ever play the Game Boy version?
Yeah,
I had that one.
It was good too. It was good too. Not as good as I don't know, man. Yeah, good in a different way. It was a little different.
I guess as far as like on the go, when you compare that to like the whack Acclaim LCD kind of handhelds that were available at the time, like this was so much better when it comes to football. So yeah, I found that interesting as well.
Yeah, I didn't play the Super Nintendo one a ton, but the Game Boy one I did a little bit. Well, on the rest of the history front, like I said, I mentioned I just did that interview with Greg Lauder, and he was a counselor from 88 to 93, and he ended up like doing a bunch of random shit because he kind of became like an assistant lead manager, and it ended up he was pursuing that because it got him off the phones, and the phone stuff was tough. I guess for him, he didn't enjoy it a ton. Not even he didn't enjoy it, but like it became a lot after doing it for years. You know, like the way his exact wording was, he's just like I just got tired of talking to 8-year-olds.
Can you imagine?
I get that, man. I hear that.
Dude?
Yeah.
Hold on. The fact that you just said that, like whenever I'm playing a game, even if I'm playing, because I'm used to playing even a game like Call of Duty with like my friends our age, like that kind of thing. But if I'm just playing a random game and then I just hey,
a kid
on the mic immediately, I'm just like, oh my gosh, no. Like
it's my biggest fear. It's why I don't. It's at least half of why I'm so averse to multiplayer online gaming, because there's just you got to give me some control on who is just coming into my life. I refuse to just be totally ungatekept and just like have any human being fly at my face. Like I'm not doing that.
And I feel like you'd have to have like a teacher level sensibility. You know what I mean? Somebody who's able to talk to kids every day to be able to be like,
and like, it's not always been like, I think that time I was fucking around with the multiplayer thing on that first football game for the Quest, and I got dropped in with that kid, and again, I was guessing he was, I don't know, like 11 or 12 or something. Like, that was actually a fantastic experience. He taught me shit. He was cool. He wasn't like fucking spastic or anything. Like,
you never know.
I'm not saying it's not possible to have a good experience, but like the likelihood that you're going to have a bad one, especially if it's that volume that those guys had to deal with, like, holy shit, it's not for me at all.
Somebody's coming in angry because they threw the controller at the TV and now they're still on the phone and they're like,
bananas.
Mom!
Both those interviews I just did with Caesar and him, like there's a little bit of that in there. They're both, it's funny to me how it's perfect. It's completely emblematic of what we're saying here is that it takes a different type of person, and that's why they spent years there and succeeded at it, and it's something that they can be dug up for and are willing to talk about today because they actually have character traits to them that makes that something they are disposed to be good at and able to cope with, and that kind of person, because they are that. But
kudos to you guys.
Good for you guys, not for fucking me. It's an amazing idea. But that moment to
sounds
moment
cool.
But being on the phone moment to moment when I'm in. Anyways, Greg did a bunch of shit, and one of the little side projects he got put on was he was tasked with sourcing the roster information for these teams. So such a random cool thing that is so fascinating to hear and engage with him about. But basically, so when they were first doing this project, which started in he started doing this in like late 88, he was his spitball. Nintendo handed him a slice of the number of teams. So like there's 28 teams at the time in the NFL, and they only gave him like maybe half of those that we wanted to work 16. With. One of my whole big things in this game has always been the Buffalo's not in it. And it was basically big market teams. If you look at, I literally worked it out myself as we were talking. And as I'm reading through the teams, I'm like, LA, New York, Chicago, Denver, Houston, all big market teams, right? So so they wanted to like have a Miami. They wanted to have a nice wide swath of the country's map. So like everyone would have some regional representation to some degree, and also be bigger market teams, just to be whatever, for obvious reasons. Same reason fucking you want big market teams to be playing in playoff games and stuff, because more people are going to watch. But, so he's handed this group of teams, and it's not all of them, but some of them. And at first he was thinking that the NFL was involved even, that like, basically that the Nintendo Players Association was so unorganized at the time that they were really just an extension of the NFL, and that he had forgotten that the NFL, there's no NFL IP in this game at all, no team names or anything. So he was thinking that there was some overlap there, and my whole thing was I was like, how did the Nintendo negotiate with the NFL Players Association a licensing agreement, pay them money for that for sure, and not just like part of the deal be like, you got to give me the rosters. You got to tell us who We're buying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to give us that information. They did not do that. They did not have it. So they needed someone to reach out and get this information. But if the Players Association doesn't have it, or weren't organized enough to be able to give it to them, you got to go to the teams. Here's the thing. The teams aren't being paid for this game. They're not making any money in this game. This game doesn't exist. You're essentially going around the NFL to use. Technically, the players are not their property, but they certainly think of them as such. You know what I mean? So, Greg hypothesizes that they used him as like a low-level lackey to, on the down low, reach out to teams and try to get them to send their media guides with all their roster information so they could build these likenesses and the player names in the game. And it was a big thing to Nintendo too, I guess. They were really worried about misrepresenting like the colors of like the skin color of players and stuff with these little likenesses. And you can tell too, I was like, dude, it's so funny you say they were real hyper concerned about that, because one of my biggest maybe compliments of this game is the detail in those headshots. Like if you think about like Tecmo, Super Tecmo Bowl has those headshots for the player bios, but there's like, I don't know, there's like a half dozen different headshots and they just stick them on players, you know. They get most of the skin colors right, to my recollection, but they don't look anything like the players. Like these motherfuckers look like they're different. Every headshot is different, you know what I mean, for the most part. And like, you know, Joe Montana in particular, like he looks like a movie star. He's got like the fucking little, you know, he's got like a very square jaw. And he's got like the mouth things, you know. He looks like a goddamn movie star. And like, yeah. So there's a ton of detail in there. And he's like, you know, Greg's telling me, he's like, I have this memory in my mind of 2 Miami Dolphins media guides sitting on my desk from basically 89 and 90, you know. And he's like, I bet if you get a hold of those media guides and go look at the headshots in the media guide and look at the headshots in the game, he's like, I bet you they're near 1-for-1 digitizations of those pictures specifically, because that's how we got that information. We literally covertly asked for that information so we would have it and could populate the game with that stuff, you know. So that, needless to say, very, very cool little history nugget there about how this game came to be.
That's freaking fascinating, dude. Are you kidding me? I remember being pissed off, like, obviously living in Ohio, like, all right, I guess I'll be either Chicago,
right? Yeah,
or New York. You know, like
even that, I mean, you know,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, Cleveland, because the Browns were in Tecmo Bowl, and like, yeah, but the idea that Buffalo wasn't in Tecmo Bowl or this was just such a that's part of why Super Tecmo Bowl hit just like a bomb for me, was because I have the Bills finally, you know, particularly. I mean, that was when they were at the peak of their powers in the 90s. But yeah. Very interesting shit. So, lunchroom table tip eavesdrops. So, as far as Nintendo Power coverage of this goes, or MAG coverage period that we've seen to date, there is a brief 2-banger on the game in issue 16 of Nintendo Power, but it is the most cursory of glossovers about what the game is. It does specify in there, that's where I got the timestamp. It specifies in that article that the roster timestamp is April 1990. These rosters are supposed to be current with that. So basically the draft of 1990.
Nice.
So that's good to know. And there is 0 classified info or Counselor's Corner appearances for the game to date. Luckily, though, there is a 15-page featuring of the game in the 4-player extra strategy guide that closed out Nintendo Power Strategy Guide Experiment, issue 19 of the mag, and we will dive deeper into that at the top of the next segment before getting into the game and talk about the teams maybe that we use the most while we were playing and kind of the strategies it suggested for them. That is the title theme, getting us into, before we talk game, let's talk 4-player extra feature, the Nintendo Power Strategy Guide. Jay, give us their table setting blurb. Playing with power!
The 4-player option of NES Play Action Football is the most realistic football simulation for the NES. For one thing, you and your teammate have to work together like a real team. Second, you can fake out and intimidate your human opponents in ways that wouldn't fool the computer. On the other hand, they might do the same to you. Watch out! In the following pages, you'll learn the strengths of every team, which players and plays to use for both you and your partner, plus special tips to give you a big edge over your opponents. Full rosters and playbooks are given for every team, and their best plays are shown with arrows marking the passing routes and running lanes. Many of the playing tips can be used for all of the teams. So that's good to know.
Yes, that is a very good explanation of what the fuck they got going on here. They then explain some particulars about roster management, how to decipher the sketches of plays on the ensuing pages, and lastly, they provide a terminology glossary on a few key footballing terms: blitzing, switching, options, line of scrimmage, pass route. Again, just in case you don't know what this shit is.
Kind of good if you just got, like, we're given the game, you're like, I've never played football, what is this? It's like, oh, you can actually learn it. So
yeah.
It's
almost like the same level of effort they're giving to the RPG, to Dragon Warrior, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, a lack of confidence that their particular, like, yes, they're making a football game because America, but that doesn't mean every kid at the NES's target demo level knows all this shit. So, like, they're making sure they're covering all their bases on that front.
Smart.
Yeah. Each team then gets a dedicated feature that profiles their strengths and weaknesses: full roster, full playbook, 3 core plays, 2 offense and 1 defense that you'd hope are geared towards the roster's best players. And then most teams get a couple more offensive play suggestions and breakdowns of what they term power plays. The teams offered are Los Angeles, Denver, San Francisco, Washington, Miami, New York, Chicago, and Houston. All but Houston and Miami get the additional power plays. Don't really know why those two get the shaft. You later find out that it's the 2 teams they consider the weakest.
Makes sense.
Jab would be very upset to hear they feel that way about Houston. I agree very much about Miami, though. And there are also 6 4-player extra special tips sprinkled into the second pages for the 6 teams with that additional coverage. I'll quickly go through each of these. There's the open field running techniques, and the big thing here is being metered with your speed burst, Jay, the A button. As hammering this really cooks your player's stamina, and you'll slow down considerably when you run out. That's why you don't want to run out of it, you know. They also mentioned the advantage of being able to lead block in co-op play, and that is so fucking true.
So much.
Yeah, and there's a lot of duping the computer AI suggestions here, too. Cutting at right angles when a defender nears, stopping and letting them just run past you, you know, like a cartoon almost, shit like that. So that's useful information. Then we have calling offensive plays, and this is a suggestion of how to role play a no-huddle offense, basically. And the defensive player caller only gets, this is really only applicable to 2-player versus 2-player where you're not playing a computer, but the defensive play caller only gets the amount of time to call their play that the offense took when selecting their play. So if you call your play in only a second or two, you know what you're doing. You can, and it's, if you have those little flashcards, you can do this, you know, and you gotta have good communication also with the person in the room that you're playing with, your teammate. But if you can, like, quickly point on the, like, you know, they know what play you're gonna pick. You can quickly point on the thing that's like the run of the pass, like top left, run, whatever, you know, and use those play cards and quickly communicate that shit. The defense will only have that same amount of time to pick their play. So if you can do that in 1 or 2 seconds, they won't be able to necessarily pick the play that's most optimal to what they want to do defensively, you know, and that's high concept shit. That's really cool. That's possible in this, you know.
Especially when you're all on one screen. Like, what do you do? You know?
And actually, they tell you, too, that it defaults to zone 4 deep if the defense doesn't get to pick an actual play. Okay. So that's good to know, too. So if you can make that happen, it's probably best to be doing that on run play. It's something that's going to exploit the deep coverage and playing the defensive backs back, you know. So, yeah, you could run all over that shit.
I mean, that's theoretically better than, like, getting a deep ball thrown on you, you know, theoretically.
Right. Yeah. I'm glad they default to that, not like hot blitz or some shit.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, it's much more... I don't know. Not as punitive. Yeah. Then they have the onside kick, and dude, this is the holy grail of NES Play Action Football tips. Like, this, to me, I don't know. Ronnie Lott. All I can say is Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott, bro. Ronnie fucking Lott. San Francisco safety, Hall of Famer, absolute stud. Did you know, Jay, do you know who Ronnie Lott is? Is that naming?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So, did you know in 1986 he chose to have his pinky amputated rather than have a pin put in it and miss time recovering from that injury? He said to just cut it the fuck off.
That's madness, man.
That is insanity. He is on record though after the fact saying he regrets it. So there's at least that. He can at least be smart. Yeah, right. Yeah, he can at least be smart in hindsight. But it's still a wild and just warrior mentality for sure in the moment. Yeah, he said he's quoted as saying he damn near threw up after breaking into a cold sweat after waking up. So not like he wasn't awake for it. So he when he woke up and the finger was just gone. His mental response was created this physical response in his body, which I can imagine. Yeah. So if I woke up and a fucking body part was gone, I'd be freaking the fuck out.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. But yes, the player closest to the place you have to kick these is apparently the free safety. At least in San Francisco's case, I'd presume it's the case with most players or most teams. Or all the teams, if it is for San Francisco, rather. So yeah, so he's fast as fuck relative to other safeties in the game. So if you can fucking kick this right, which you want to, you ideally want to stop the arrow as far to the left as it will go, and the power meter as low as it will go, and then as soon as it's kicked off, you hit A and B to switch to that free safety and just cook his speed burst running towards that ball. And what you want is the ball can, it can bounce when it lands, of course, so it can bounce and kind of just go wherever, and it will never really go away from towards the sideline. It either will go straight in your best case scenario, or it will bounce kind of over towards the players on the receiving team, which is not ideal, of course. But if that fucker goes straight and you got Ronnie Lott, you're scoring a tutty every time. He's going to get the ball, and they won't be able to catch him, and you just cook your ass on the sideline, and it's a touchdown. And it is just fucking such discovering this as a kid and then being able to learn how to do it reliably, just the most satisfying thing ever. So cool. Yes. They say in here that it is a 1 in 4 chance that they're recoverable against the CPU, but that you probably won't fool a human player twice. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. This seems just like spitball-y shit to me. This doesn't really sound like a data-backed thing at all. And honestly, fuck you. If you give me Ronnie Lott, I'm doing way better than 25% of the time. So I don't give a shit if it's a human or what. It doesn't matter. I mean, I guess the humans. See, here's the thing. I don't think you can switch players.
I have not been able to switch.
Yeah, I don't think you can switch when you're receiving. So it won't matter if it's a human player. I don't think, whatever the case. Give me Ronnie Lott. Give me Ronnie Lott. I'm fucking getting that motherfucker a lot of the time.
maybe he runs out of gas though, like after 2 of them, and then you're like, all right.
Well, yeah, no. If you did them just fucking over and over and over again, maybe he would be. But in a standalone moment where he does have his stamina, he's fast as fuck, and you're not getting him. So the next one is make use of the flashcards and explains how to implement those flashcards I was just talking about, which are these super fucking cool things that came packed in with the game. Very fucking awesome to communicate with the player in the room with you silently, when you have 2 versus 2. And it's just, I've never had a reason to use them, and I've fucking just sat and stared at them and just wish I did, man. It's just such a cool, they're so cool looking, they have obvious correlations with the run of the pass and then the 4 quadrants of the playbook design. And then there's a little as drawn or opposite thing you can point at too. And just so fucking cool. So fucking cool. Such a cool idea.
I never had those because I rented it when I was playing it, so I never had the fun little.
Yeah. I mean, I had the 4-player things, but were you 2 fucking? Me and my uncle would play 2-player co-op all the time, but 2 more players never happened. It'd be amazing. The fucking guys, both Caesar and Greg, those 2 counselors, they said they used to. One of them was saying that they would go get a hotel room and do 4-player tournaments, nice. Which is fucking just awesome, just so cool. Next one is communicating and signaling, and this is just urging you that your teammate to come up. This is also just so cool. Basically urging you and your teammate to come up with, when you're playing 2-player versus 2-player, to come up with code words to be able to communicate out loud without the other team knowing what you're talking about, So Omaha, basically, it's fucking Omaha. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, just absolutely love that. The kids coming up with that, the idea of picturing some little kid system of that is just so good, Mm-hmm. And then the very last one is defensive strategies, and this is tips for playing in pass coverage as well as kick blocking tactics here. Tell you to jump, basically, which is kind of true, kind of reliable.
It's almost like this game was made. The more I think about it, there was so much that went into this. it's almost like this was made to promote the 4-player adapter.
Oh, for sure. All these 4-player games. Yeah, all these 4-player games were. Yeah, no, that's 100%. Like I said, in the States, though, it was like it was like a multi-layered marketing decision. Yes, like this is going to be our Nintendo of America thing. Like, let's pick football. I'm sure. Yes, the first thing was we need to make a game that's 4-player to use these new peripherals, multiple, the 4-score and the satellite. So yeah, I'm sure that was the core inciting moment, but all the other shit we've talked about is in play for sure.
I mean, because there's so much here about like the communication between everybody, like hearing stuff like that I didn't even use. I didn't experience that because I most of the time generally just played a 2-player, or 1-player by myself. So it's like, man, I feel like I missed out on
so much
what they made this for, like the experience to do it.
Yeah, no, it would have been so cool to be like because I remember I have memories of like my teenage years of us like sitting up in my boy AGB's bedroom, 4 of us playing fucking, and that was like our core group was 4 fucking kids. It was me, TC, Will, and AGB, and we would fucking hang up in his room smoking fucking bongs and drinking Seagram's gin and juice all the fucking time, listening to Bob Marley and other shit like that. So like, we in the 64 era, we played a shit ton. Honestly, even like it was the 64 era, like the mid to late 90s rather, but we still had his SNES and NES up there, so we would play all that shit. We played a shit ton of like NBA Live 96 on SNES, a bunch of NES stuff, Tecmo Bowl and shit, and then on 64 I remember the wrestling game, which I really wasn't a huge fan of, but we played a lot of that one of those wrestling games on 64 a bunch, and a whole bunch of other. But we did jam 4-player stuff all the time then, so it would have been awesome for the NES era. I don't want to be that old right now, but
right, exactly.
it would have been cool to have that be your teen years. Like this hitting would have been like such a like, oh my god, let's get the boys. We're fucking playing this shit for sure. Yeah, that would have been awesome. 100%. What team did you go with for your plays?
I mean, I had to go with New York. Without like I said, without Cincinnati or Cleveland, any Ohio type of team. I'm like, all right, well. We lived in New York. That was the next closest NFL team to root for so long.
Okay.
So.
The fucking G-men, huh? Okay. The teams offered here do not include Buffalo, as already mentioned, so that was not an option. I went with Houston in honor of Jab. He was an Oilers fan when we were little, or today, currently too, I guess, even though they're the Titans. So it was kind of like in honor of him in general also, but then there's the layer of the fact that he wanted to try to ride my coattails and be a Bills fan when we were kids, and I forcefully wouldn't let him and made him pick another team. So
wouldn't let him?
So that Iron Fist executive decision that I made at the time, this is kind of my way of walking that back a little, or at least apologizing for it, So I will read the Houston paragraph here to explain what their table setting thing is, and we can do the same for New York afterwards. But the Houston blurb reads, when you play with Houston, your road to glory is on the ground. Your partner will have a lot of running room when he controls Rozier, Houston's best running back. Of course, you'll have to get out front and block for him, and he should make use of open field running techniques. At QB is Moon, who has a strong arm. Hill at wide receiver, and Morosco, the tight end, are true aerial threats. The defense is led by speedy linebackers and 2 great cornerbacks. Still, against the competition of the other teams, Houston is not one of the stronger squads. And I'll tell you right now, immediate response to that, dude. Well, first, I'll be starting with the handicap. And Miami, like I said, is the other one they say is kind of the shittier team. But it says, dude, and they also tell you, too, they just give them like kind of these labels there beneath their name. It says it's a running offense and a blitzing defense. And the offensive assessment is just flat out inaccurate, dude. The 1990 Oilers ran the run and shoot offense, and it is a high flying passing attack that had like 4 fucking Pro Bowlers, dude. Drew Hill, Haywood Jeffries, Ernest Givens, and Curtis Duncan. Jab didn't even know who this tight end was, by the way. So the tight end was not anything special on this offense. And the running backs were like this. If you look at, I went and looked at their stats, dude, and like, so in 1989, and and we're not in, like they say 1990, but like I was like, maybe 1989 is where some of these stats came from. Who knows? But look at either one, dude. the same 4 guys for both years that were the most productive. No running back had more than 531 yards. Rozier specifically had the lowest yards of all 4 of their backs in both 89 and 90. So I don't know how you're getting that he's the best of the 4 backs. You know what I mean? His yards per carry in 89 was dead last, a shitty 3.4 yards a carry, which is awful. Anything below 4 is dog shit, in this era of football. And yeah, he's the only back of theirs that has full meters in both speed and power, though. So at least the underlying in-game numbers track with what they're recommending here, but it's not accurate to real-world shit at all, Yeah, I mean, Moon, Hill, and Givens were all Pro Bowlers, and Jeffries also had 1,000 yards receiving in 1990. So, they were... It was a Jerry Glanville. It was like a revolutionary offense that Jerry Glanville got. He got the head coaching job in Atlanta because of his success as an offensive coordinator.
Josh, what are you talking about? Didn't you just tell me there was just like a one-man system, like a one-man operation? What are we expecting here?
Well, I guess I actually didn't finish that thought. So Greg did say that he started the project. It eventually got handed off to a team, though, before it got into the game. So there was some more scrutiny and some more effort to this than just him getting. Yeah, he didn't do any of the statistic, like the attribute stuff was not. He was just getting the data for the player likenesses and the name.
Like this dude was probably just like, good. Yes, 75.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, yeah, there was supposedly, but I mean, who knows? A team in quotations. I don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. Exactly how many fucking whatever.
Yeah, a team could literally be one person.
Right. Like precisely. So their 3 play suggestions are the counter, a misdirection-minded run play. They recommend you go to they literally tell you here to go through the trouble of substituting before you run the play. Basically, to swap places of your running backs and move Mike Rozier into this the other running back spot, so he's the default ball carrier on this counter play instead of Alonzo Highsmith, who I concur is dog shit.
It's fascinating if they would give you that level of help there.
Okay. So yeah, they're giving you the whole multi-level strategy here, roster management and play calling. They're giving you all the strategy. The second play is QB keeper, and man, I don't know about this dude. Like Moon is not known for his mobility. He wasn't Dan Marino, like a fucking statue back there, but he was not a mobile quarterback. And he was honestly, he played in the CFL. He was like a wonderkin CFL quarterback for a number of years. And he was in the USFL as well, I think, before he came and got the gig in Houston. So he was already like, he didn't come in at like 22, like this dynamic fucking athletic quarterback, So yeah, I mean, running with him, not a fucking thing at all. And I mean, his speed meter again in the game is high, but I don't think that's accurate to real world shit at all. So yeah, fuck that. And on top of that, we'll get into it later in the application of these plays, but you don't want your quarterback running around in this game and getting cooked.
Absolutely not. He's going to get taken out immediately.
Right. So yeah, you do not want to be doing
on
that,
a
period.
Stretcher.
Yeah. So literally it's never a good idea to be running your quarterback under any circumstance, let alone a designed play for him. So fuck that play. And then the last one they had for him was again predicated on QB mobility, the rollout pass. So, moving to the sideline and buying yourself more time, which I would run that play and I would never get anywhere near actually rolling out before I'm throwing the ball. So whatever. Okay. I actually did like its routes, but the core of the play design, the rollout function or part of it is irrelevant, I think. So what did New York have for this stuff? Give me the first blurb and then talk about their plays and strategy.
New York has good running, good passing, and great defense. Just about all you could ask for in a team. Although there are many exciting plays you'll make use of, Sims, Bavaro, and Taylor are the standouts that shape the team. On offense, short passes from Sims to Bavaro give New York a radically different look than most passing teams, such as Denver and Miami. On defense, the linebackers led by Taylor keep constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Switching to blitzing defenders is therefore highly recommended. And I agree. I mean,
Bavaro was who scored the tutty in the game we just played. He was the one with the 76-yard tutty.
And that's fascinating too, because the plays they recommend are the quick pass, the punt fake, and the blitz too deep.
The punt fake? What an insane thing.
Right? Like I'd never even attempted punts at all. So no, I'm not. What are we talking about? Yeah, this is football.
I'm not duping football. I'm not duping anyone with my fake if I've never put it in the first place. It's a fucking NES game.
Right. But I will say, because passing in this game is atrocious, and like I struggled so much at it, mightily struggled.
It's not atrocious. It's just a high learning curve, Jay.
It's sure. Tomato. So I did a lot of slants, a lot of quick passes. So I would agree, like being able to like do screen passes, short passes, like those kind of things, like helped me get chunk plays and actually make it. Otherwise, it would be like I can't even play the game. But being able to actually get the ball out quick, super helpful.
How controlling Taylor? How was he just like fucking a tornado as far as speed and shit goes?
I mean,
LT.
If that's who they actually let me control, yeah. I mean, I definitely got into backfield several times. Like that was nice. Like I was feeling good about that.
Yeah, their linebackers do. When I played them in my playoff run, like I felt all three of their linebackers, Pepper Johnson, Carl Banks, and Lawrence Taylor. I felt all three of those motherfuckers playing that game, and like I didn't have a lot. There weren't a lot of teams where like the defenders mattered to me at all. But I was like, God damn, their linebackers are all over my ass, man. Like they were just skull fucking my running game, dude. Like they were in the backfield every play.
Yeah, it was nice, and I mean the running game was nice, man. I was getting big chunk plays. It was just. Yeah, we'll talk about it more.
OJ, which one did you like more? OJ, Otis Anderson, or that Maurice Carthen fucker?
Carthen. He would, man, it was like 20 yards every time, man, like without fail. And that's why I started getting so loose with the sprints, because I was like, man, I'm getting these chunk plays every time. Am I just like wasting and not doing this? So that's when I just started jamming it, just because like he was getting tired anyway. So I was like, well, I don't really know how much, like the rate that I'm using, because he's running so much all the time, you know.
So. If you get a long run and you're cooking that, you'll cook your entire player in one play. If you're hitting the A button that whole time, like your player will be cooked at the end of just one play. You got to be like super metered about that shit if you don't want to be switching.
It's brutal.
Not even switching players at all, but like. I mean, like you said, they don't recover super fast. So I think they auto-recover at the end of maybe even quarters, but definitely halves. Like even injuries, if they get carried off on a stretcher, they're back in at the next half for sure, and maybe the next quarter even. So
for sure, it wasn't until halftime I was like, oh, finally he can run again. You know, after substituting and stuff, just like, well, I guess got to do some different stuff. And I was like, finally, second half, let's go.
And then what do they got for their power plays?
So the power plays, the pitch out, which definitely used a version of that, and the button hook, which, man, I tried it again. It's passing. I tried it so many times, and to its credit, I was fucking open all the time. Those dudes got open, man. But it would just be like, oh, the ball's almost got there. It's just a miss every now and then. I got a couple like, oh, I got one. Oh, I got another. I got like 2 passes in the whole like second game that I played. I got 2 passes, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I don't even know if I wrote anything down about that. Like where on the arrow you need to be, because to me it is so second nature, dude. It is, dude. It's that bottom right corner, dude, and like not even on it, like fucking off of it, kind of. And like I said, dude, even knowing that, I still fuck it up all the time, you know.
But that's the fact that. But that tells me,
especially if you can't run there and stop before it switches view.
Yeah,
that makes.
But that's what I mean, man. I the fact that it was never a smooth process, never a smooth catch ever, tells me that I didn't play this. Even though I have fond memories of this game and I liked it, I clearly didn't play it as much as I played other football games. You know, because it would be much eeasier. Yeah, you know, I remember some plays. Like I said, as soon as we started playing 2-player, I started recalling other things, but. Like how to catch it? No. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that pitch out. Houston has that pitch out too. I use that play as a mix up with the sweep and the lead option a lot.
Yeah,
it's a good play.
Solid.
Word. Okay, so that's the mag. Let's get into the actual game now. So at the title screen, whatever you think slaps, it doesn't slap like this. We start off with an aerial view of a football stadium at night, a bunch of shit down on the field that can be barely made out. The roar of the crowd settles just as we cut to the scoreboard to see a trumpeter ripping into the Star Spangled Banner. The image behind me right now. Said trumpeter comes correct. He's sporting a top hat styled with an American flag, so it's like fucking Apollo Creed and fucking
right.
Rocky, too.
It's like Louis Armstrong coming out for Apollo Creed.
yeah.
Combined.
And then it'll cut from that to some players lined up on the sideline, standing side by side with their hands on their hearts. Both are great animated pixel art deals. The trumpeter's fingers are working the instrument, and the players all blink periodically, so it's not just still images. And they all look really good as far as the actual art design goes. The music dies down, and the crowd noise again swells as we cut back to the wide of the stadium, and an American flag can be seen on the field. It quickly begins to float upward, then starts to disperse in a way that conveys that they are balloons that were making up the flag. And as they rise above the stadium bowl, they turn into the NES Play Action title treatment, and some raw-ass title music rips in. And hitting start gets you to a menu offering the various different ways 1 to 4 players can get down in an exhibition game on this cart, as well as the 1-player playoff run to the Power Bowl. For the controls and HUD, once you get into this game, the HUD is loaded with all the standard information that you need when doing football shit, and the menus you need to navigate, pick plays and substitute players, all that shit's pretty good. It's all straightforward and well done enough, in my opinion. It's not any it doesn't have much pizzazz. It's all it's very plain Jane, but it conveys the necessary information, which is certainly the more important part than looking snazzy, The substitution screen does have little headshots for the players that, like I said, are pretty good representations of them. So the one thing you could have done here is have them, and there's only so many bits, but it would have been nice if there was if they show like the Doom head does, it shows where, the Huff, and it would have been nice if there'd been at least either if there would have been a cutoff point, maybe that communicated you should take this player out, he's winded,
Yeah,
even doesn't have
he's
to
not smiling, he's
right, exactly, something, or just breathing breathing
or even if the background of their picture was green, now it's yellow,
right,
or something
to convey that this player is not good to be given the ball to right now. Would have been nice, because it
does suck when you give him the ball and you're like, oh, he's barely trucking, you're like, right. No dude, I would have subbed you out,
dude. I played the whole playoff thing and I never once could internalize to periodically check, you do have to go, yes, you get the report when they run the ball, or the ball carrier on a play, they show you that player at the end of the play, that's helpful, of course, but your quarterback can get tackled if he's blocking or whatever. He can take energy or take hits and stuff without being a ball carrier, and the quarterback is where it can really hurt you, because if you try you throw a dog shit ball basically when you are out of energy, or worst case, even worse than that, you get knocked out of the game entirely, because you're not I'm guessing, again, I don't have any math of this, but if they're smart, the lower your player is on stamina, the slower he would recuperate and the longer you'd have to wait to put him back in. So if you're balancing, the way the computer does it, they take him out around sometimes seemingly super early, a third of their energy gone at most, they're swapping those players. So I would think there's some incentive to be doing that, above and beyond. Just you don't want them to run out entirely. Or like I said, with the running backs, if you're all the way out of energy, your guy will just fumble it the first time. When I would get that vibe that he had run low or completely out of energy and I wasn't tackled yet, once I got he's fucking cooked, I would just hit B immediately.
Just dive?
Yeah, I'm done. We're done. I'm not pushing anything. I'm not pushing the envelope on this at all.
Dude.
Because, I had more than one fumble that was just what the fuck? He just fumbled out of nowhere.
So much, man. Oh my gosh. So much.
So same thing with the play selection screens. They're solid, large diagrams that are no problem to understand whatsoever if you know your ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to football. And that's even with them, they combine, I think it's pretty impressive that they're able to combine the run and the pass plays onto one diagram and communicate that clearly, that the blue corresponds to the running play action and the red corresponds to the passing play action. So I think that's really well done and intelligently designed. The control themselves, when you're playing the game, it's a little slow and plodding, but I think that's with intention. And once you settle into the methodical flow of the game, I think they feel just right, in my opinion. I think maybe from first glance, if you're not familiar with this game, it's going to be this is even what Jab said when he pulled up a video. When I told him I was playing this and I was playing as Houston, he pulled up a video, and he doesn't have much familiarity with it, I guess, despite how much I might have played it when we were little. And he's watching the video, and he's like, "Oh God, it looks fucking so slow and horrible." I'm like, "Yeah, but I think that is by choice, and I think it allows you to employ strategy mid-play that you can't employ in a game like Tecmo. Like, you can make decisions to go through holes, and like you can make choices in the moment in this because of that game speed that you can't make in Tecmo. You just can't. It's just too fast paced. So I think that's this credit to, or to its credit rather, to, and plays into the simulation focus of it, you know.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, so you already talked about the passing system. Is certainly, it needs to be discussed, man. Like, so first of all, yeah, I mean, on 2-player, you can pick the receiver, which is kind of cool in of itself. That you pick one of the 3 receivers, but you only have 3 at any given play to choose from. So, because like when in the play, the way you throw the ball is you either hold left, hold to if you want to throw to the left receiver, at least in theory, you hold up to throw to the middle receiver, or hold right to throw to the right receiver and hit the pass button for any of these things, right? So, you know, most of the routes are pretty properly spaced, where you can intuitively know. But there's some routes, dude, even playing the game. Like that crossing route, I still don't know.
I don't know, man.
I don't know which one does which.
Like, is it really just a player it represents and not really where they're going? Like, it just...
Yeah, and I'm not sure.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, and like even, especially like that crossing play, we ran that the one time, and I don't think I threw it to you. I threw it to the other guy because he was more open, but... The crossing routes are going to the same thing, so you were just standing there and you caught it, and both our players are in the same place. So yeah, I guess it's kind of nice that we can kind of double up on the fucking safety angle. But you know, yeah, man, it's fucking pretty fucking tough.
Could be better.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. So you're only talking. It's always 2 wideouts and a tight end, so with the exception of the screen pass, which is really just a run play. With a goofy design to it is really all it is. Even in its depiction of it, it's a blue play in the playbook, you know. So,
but that's I think that is my fundamental problem with passing in this game is that when you run a screen pass or something behind the line, you just hit the B button and it goes to the guy. Like, you're good.
Well,
they can maneuver.
Kind of, not always. You didn't have any fumbles?
Well, not always. Except I will say, except for the one play, the other guy can get in the way. Like, yes.
Well,
sure.
well, the screen pass, yes, they can fuck up the screen pass by getting in the way. Or even that same thing happened on a lead option for us, where if a defensive player grapples,
gets
the ball carrier, you can't. If you throw him the ball, it's just gonna get fumbled, and so you need to keep it then and run with your quarterback and cook him. But also, if you let those plays string out too long, like the lead option, for example, you don't want to pitch until the last second, ideally. And sometimes you can take that quarterback and fucking swing him way out there before you ideally would throw him the ball. But if you wait too long, the running back, there's not even really an explanation for it, I would say. But if you wait too long,
he might just think you're good and just
go off. I guess that's the way to role play it. But like the ball Warren Moon had more than one fumble where he just threw the ball to fucking nowhere, you know? And like, even on some of the handoffs where it's like a more compact play, like that counter and the off tackle that are just kind of like quick plays. If you don't run the quarterback back and to the right a little bit, so it's, you know, you don't have to be touching the guy that you're giving the ball to, but damn close, which makes physics sense, sure. But it's tough to know that, especially the first few times you run the play. And like I had more than one fumble on the exchange with those too, where you just you're not quite in the right place as the quarterback, and he fucking just drops the fucking ball.
I never had that experience.
Dude, I had a ton of fucking fumbles and botched exchanges in my playoff run. That was just brutal. So there's, you know, back to the passing game stuff. You're basically, because of that system, you can't dump the ball off to a running back on a traditional passing play. You don't have any 4 or 5 wide receiver sets, which completely nullifies what Houston you know, in principle is. Like, their strength is their 4 wide receivers. So you're never going to have all 4 of them on the field. It's just, it's pretty fucking tough. And like I said, when we were playing the co-op, 75% of the time, throwing to the left wide receiver against the computer is an INT waiting to happen. Like, just the ball seemingly has to travel further just because of the way the field is laid out and is in the air longer, and in turn can be reacted to better by the defense. And yeah, I mean, throwing over there, I'm not going to say I never did it intentionally, but it was not my first choice in most cases. And, you know, I guess we didn't say it, but sometimes you'll fucking, I mean, on more than one occasion, I guess it's probably the up thing the best explanation for it would be when you're trying to throw to the middle receiver and maybe you got a little bit of a lean to the right or left on where you're hitting on that D-pad.
Maybe.
It confuses it and you throw to the left or right instead, you know. But when that happens to the left and you're not intending to throw to the left, you're not paying any attention to what's happening over there. And
right. You're like, oh my gosh.
It's probably a fucking mess, you know. So,
yeah,
really, really tough in some aspects. So, yeah, it's, you know, like I said, it's not great, perhaps. I think I wouldn't have wanted them to do what Tecmo is, which is just select the guy and the fucking quarterback throws it to him, you know. There's no strategy to that. Like that, it is kind of interesting that, like, because you can better position yourself in this case because it switches you to the receiver right after you throw the ball as in the one-player game. And in the two-player game, obviously, you can have the two-player person running the player two running the route the whole time. So you can jockey kind of for the ball on a defender that might be in position to make a catch, you know. You can also jump just like they can, you know. So it allows more control because that's the thing in Tecmo, dude. I mean, you got to learn to game that. Like late season in a season of Super Tecmo Bowl or Tecmo Super Bowl, dude. Every player is covered, and you're throwing an interception. If the defender is standing there, you're throwing an interception. So like you need to come up with like cheeses to even throw the ball at all in late season playoff Tecmo, you know? So it's nice that it's not that dumb that the computer, when it gets all cheaty, can just exploit that, you know?
Knock it down,
so that's one aspect that I like, but there are frustrating components of it, without a doubt. So that's the setup. You know, if we'll go through an exhibition game here and just kind of talk about the flow of a game. And so you start a game, you pick your team from a very lame setup of the 8 logos. And like all the logos are kind of, they're just
random.
Well, they're like stylized, with the exception of Houston, funny enough. They're all just kind of like stylized letters with the color scheming of the actual NFL team they're ripping off illegally, you know, is basically what all these logos are. So it's pretty funny. But you pick that, and then you go to the coin toss that doesn't involve any coin pixel art, sadly, I think. It's just the 2 logos swapping, and it stops on one of them, and that's who kicks off or gets the ball, whatever it might be. So then you cut to the kickoff, and it's go time, and the kicking team has to stop their directional arrow. This is how the kicking works. You'll have a directional arrow, and it goes back and forth between the hash marks in this case, and then once you stop it wherever, it's got a power meter, and you're just trying to stop the power meter as it moves back and forth. It's like a golf game. It's basically the golf system, or Nintendo Golf system, rather, that was in the black box cart. And
for sure.
Yeah, you kick the ball gets kicked off, and if you're the receiving team, you can kneel in the end zone, which is cool too. That's a difference between Tecmo and Tecmo. On kickoffs, you cannot. There's no touchbacks. So if you catch a deep kickoff in Tecmo, you better start your ass running because there's no way out of this, you know. So you got to return the ball in Tecmo. So it's nice that you can down it. Yeah. And they're pretty good about this too. Like I would learn later, I didn't have a lot of punts into my end zone, but that would require the offense getting much further than they often did against me. But if they punt the ball into the end zone, and you catch it, you can down it. But even if the ball, if you can't get under it and it bounces around in there, and the kicking team touches it, it downs as a touchback. So I just thought it was all very well done. There was no bullshit with that.
That surprises me. I was like, because I saw that happen. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that did happen in our game too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is very well done and pretty good. Yeah, and we talked about it on the co-op too, but you can kick out of bounds, which is a foul in NFL play as well, and then they penalize you and make you re-kick. That's not how, I mean, the NFL, it's different in the NFL, and maybe, I don't know if it was different back then, I don't remember the rule of that specifically back then, but now, if you kick the ball out of bounds, the receiving team just gets the ball at the 40. So they don't do that, they just penalize the kicking team 5 yards, and you re-kick, which is, I guess different. So once the returner has the ball, they're bumbling, rumbling, stumbling their way up the field, and immediately you feel how much slower this game is in Tecmo. Like the kickoffs in particular, like it's like an eon before you're coming in contact with the receiving team defenders.
I have to say, my first note playing my first exhibition game is, dude, it's sad how dated this feels to me. I was like, I can't. I can't even believe, like, I cannot believe I was logging to play Madden. Like, I was shocked. Like, I couldn't, I had to pause it and, like, check my reaction. Like, this is the right game. Yeah, NES Play Action Football. This is the 4-player. Yeah, this is the game I like. This is the game I love.
I'm sure it felt very different. Yeah, I'm sure it felt very different in the early 90s. No question. Yeah, like, I would say, and this is me spitballing, I didn't sit down with a fucking stopwatch or anything, but I would spitball it probably takes 4 or 5 seconds to run 10 yards in this game, whereas in Tecmo, your average speed is like 2 seconds, maybe, to run 10 yards, you know?
Yeah,
so
what is happening?
It's just so much slower. Like I said, I think that plays into a lot of what makes this game good, you know? So I'm not necessarily knocking this. It is just a very factual observation. And a big fuck gap for a kid whose mind is racing at 1 million miles an hour in 1990, you know?
Like, I ran so much, 2 yards.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yep. So, yeah, we do have 50-minute quarters. There's no changing that unless, I guess, you game genie it up. And, yeah, the clock does speed up to accelerate things, like during gameplay, like while a play is actually happening. And then also if the clock isn't stopped with a timeout or a quarter stoppage or anything, as you're running up to the line, it's already rolling, you know, so after you pick your play. So, you know, you can easily burn off the 40 seconds that would be in a play clock. Or it's 25, I think. Is it 25 or 40? And if I can't believe I don't know that right now. I'm whatever it is, you can burn off a lot of time between plays. Like once I was trying to, like, I'm in the playoff thing and like these games are taking fucking forever. And I'm trying to get to the goddamn Powerball in this game. I would make sure I would just, because the once you get up to the line, your guy will start saying hut 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 or whatever, and you can start the play whenever you want by hitting the button. Or you can let it play out, and eventually it will auto start. And like a lot of plays will have like motion or something, and you know you would want to run that motion anyways. Theoretically, I don't know how much it actually affects strategy or your player's behavior after a play starts, but theoretically you would want to run the motion that is in the play design, so you can let all that play out. And once that completes, it automatically starts the play. So you can't just let it run forever, even though there is no play clock. But you can let some time run down and not have these games take a fucking 3 hours, you know. So that is an option. Yeah, and the clock doesn't even stop at the 2 minute. There's no 2-minute warnings. Nothing. Like the clock will just keep fucking running, you know. So
you know what else I was upset that I was missing? I was like, can I get a 2-point conversion? Nope, too early. Too early in the timeline.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I want to say that's probably like when did that change? Like fucking
this is like 2000s, right? Like it wasn't 90s. It wasn't late 90s, was it?
I'm not entirely sure. I want to say it was maybe late 90s. But yeah, late 90s, early 2000s. So yeah, 1990 definitely hasn't happened yet. So we've talked about the field orientation. Always has the offense working their way towards the upper right. It's at an angle and this isometric deal. And it does not switch directions at the quarter change like you might kind of expect a football game to, which means you're always playing defense towards the bottom left. So that's how the game flow works. There are voice samples in this shit, which are fucking fantastic. It says touchdown, it says first down, which sounds to me like you said in croissant, but they have a few voice samples that are pretty recognizable and pretty good.
Croissant.
There are scoreboard animations, all of which are accompanied by a dope little scoreboard ditty. We have diving touchdowns and running touchdowns, and like I said, the dive is always much cooler.
Yes, and I was robbed of multiple.
Yeah, I don't understand why that wasn't happening. Maybe there's something weird about 2-player play that's different. I don't know, but usually, as long as you dive before you get to the goal line, you'll get that. It's like 2 players. They're like the defenders are lying on the ground, looking up at him as he's just getting over the goal line. Yeah. Very, very cool. Just breaks the plane. The running one's also fun. He's like a hero shot up at the runner. You can see what I interpret as a dome ceiling and a jumbotron behind him, and he's running with the defender behind him, and he looks over his shoulder to like see the defender, and then he dips his head as if to suggest he's like turning on the burners,
cross
you
the
know.
Finish line.
And then the defender goes out of view, you know, and he raises the ball up in the air to celebrate his conquest. And then we have successful kicks. The kicker runs up and kicks the shit out of the ball. His leg flies way up in the air and the ball flies out of frame. So they show that. Receiving touchdowns are pretty cool. If you can, it only occurs when you throw it into the end zone. Like you can't, it's not yak. You have to throw the ball into the end zone. And this one, he like cuts to the receiver and he's got some defenders around him. And he like looks over his shoulder and then he turns his body, contorts his body to jump up in the air and catch it, you know, in his bread basket. And come back down with it. So that's a pretty cool one too. And then the QB sack, which is fucking fantastic. It's like doing the forearm shiver It's like
Oh, man.
forearm up
Yep.
underneath the quarterback's fucking face mask.
Yep. In the college game, what can only be described as targeting.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you do this you can't touch a NFL quarterback's head at all. Like you can't even like, there's like super bitch ass ones where like the defender's hand, like a finger touches the top of the crown of the helmet, and they will call that shit every time.
And you're coming up under him, like you're done. Like there's no way.
They would eject you probably for that. Now, you can't even. No chance. I mean, no one would even try it. Like you would have to. It would be insane to even think to try.
People would throw you out. Like, what are you doing?
You would fucking get suspended for multiple games for trying shit like that these days. The INT one is pretty cool too. It has the wide receiver just standing there, like mouth agape, and the defender just moves from left to right into frame, grabs the ball, and comes down. And the wide receiver never changes expression at all.
Lost the ball to sunlight, maybe.
Yeah, right. And we have a bringing out the chains one to measure with, and this can be short or a first down, even though your hypothesis was that there never is a first down. I saw plenty of first downs on this one. And
I saw one.
Okay. And then the last one is winning the game. There's two players in a black void. One has their helmet held high, like a head on a fucking pike, and then the other has his fist clenched in a raw emotion. The latter raises his left hand and gives us a "we're number one" sign. So a bunch of cool scoreboard animations that also kind of slow the game down, especially if you're sacking the quarterback as frequently as I was doing. Like the sack, I'm like, I don't need the sack one every time, guys. Like I got it. They show that shit every time though that one of these things happens. And then the last animation fucking sprinkle that they give you is the ref animation. He like pops up out of the HUD and signals a whole bunch of shit. There's first downs, touchdowns. It's the same guy that says the first down and touchdown voice sample. But yeah, first downs, touchdowns, no good and good, field goals, extra points, inches to go measurement. Like when you come up short, he does the little fucking two fingers thing. And he's also, I don't know if you got any safeties, but they do a safety signal as well when you get a safety. So
nice.
Pretty thorough and a nice touch there. And then there are injuries in this game. Technically, they're not really injuries. They're kind of just a motherfucker getting knocked out of the game.
Yeah.
And when it happened, like basically their stamina running out. And when that happens, little dudes come rushing out with a stretcher. It's pretty fun, I would say. And they're gone for the rest of either the quarter or the half. I'm not entirely sure. But you can definitely, like that. Like I said, it happens to the quarterback a lot. You can get the backup quarterback in quite a bit. I don't know how much, I didn't feel like Cody Carlson is Houston's backup, and when I would have to put him in, I wouldn't necessarily see a performance difference, even though I think he was maybe 3/4 in both meters, and Moore and Moon was full in both, so not a big deal really, but you can get to backup quarterbacks quite a bit in the game. And yeah, we talked about the kicking game. Receiving punts is a little goofy. You gotta when they punt, you take control of the returner, and you got to be you can't just, your guy does not just go to where it's going. You have to, and there's no arrow. I kind of like this too. This is a great example of it makes you got to be dialed in and tracking where the ball is going and getting your guy there. And only by looking at where the ball's going in its trajectory, you don't get any indicator on the field of where to go. There's no arrow, even nothing like with passing game. So to catch those, you got to be on the ball. And if you miss it, your guy freezes and the ball keeps bouncing. So, yeah, it's highly punitive if you don't get your ass underneath it. But if you can get your ass under that ball, and like I said, that whole mess of players in the center of the field, what I learned to do is try to, if you can get around the first wave of defenders that aren't going to be blocked, and then get into that mass of humanity in between the hash marks, I returned a shit ton of touchdowns for touchdowns, dude. Or sorry, punts for touchdowns. What? Yeah, I had a bunch of fucking return touchdowns. So, and I think Donaldson was the guy. Yeah, I learned later too that it's the free safety that catches the punts. It's not the returner, or one of your running backs or anything. So it's free safety that's back there. So the free safety for for Houston is this white guy Donaldson, and he was fast as fuck. So. Yeah, it was a very... There was a few games where I would have them multiple punts in a row, returning touchdowns for punts. So yeah, I got pretty hot with that shit.
That's crazy.
But super fun. A very... Especially because your player is so slow. It requires a lot of juking and really fucking Nintendo thumbing the shit out of that D-pad to catch the blocks and shit. So good. Very fun.
Nice.
Yeah, some of the random shit playing, I would say the most devastating thing that can happen to you on defense is for the offense to hit a dive play on you the right way. Like, if you don't have any second level defenders, if you have one of those like rush plays going,
it's over.
Yeah, they are gone.
Over.
Dude. If they get through
the
that
number of up the middle quarterback run plays was staggering.
Yeah,
because I wasn't ready for them. I'd be like thinking that I'm set in a solid defense, which is rational, ready to contain, and somehow up the middle gone. Like, oh my gosh, dude.
Yep.
Yeah. Having to like really plan for that and game for that regularly was not something I was prepared for.
Yeah, they thankfully don't, they don't really try to catch you slipping where they're running those on fucking 3rd and 14 or anything, But yeah, early downs, you got to be very cognizant of the up the middle runs, and also they attack the edges very well too. Like, they do a very good job of the horizontal stuff too. They use the screen pass a ton. The computer loves the fucking screen pass, and your guys never do what they do, where they like lock up the guy who's going to catch the ball. That never happens with the computer ever. No, so
only you.
Yeah, you can, dude. I've done it before. I wasn't able to do it in any of my plays for this, but I remember being able to do it when I was little, dude. You can get in there and intercept those screen passes. So if you get your guy in the right place and hit jump in time, you can pick those fuckers off, which is nice that's possible. Especially because, again, the computer thinks of that as a run play. So I was surprised that it was possible, but it is for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, and on that topic, interceptions and PBUs both have pretty, I don't know, like jarring maybe animations to them. Like, INTs are always straight up and down jumps by the defender, and they like both hands in the air, and they take so long to play out. Like, the jump is so slow and floaty, and they accompany with this really grating beeping noise. I guess maybe it should be a very unhappy noise, but.
Right, making sure
right.
Foe got intercepted.
Yeah, and then PBUs are quicker, and they only have one hand. It's like a very I don't know, the fucking guy like jerks, and like the ball just kind of bounces haphazardly away from the defender after it happens. Fumbles, happen out of fucking nowhere. The ball just squirts out as a defender makes contact with the runner and can bounce anywhere, and like it feels like I want to credit it. It feels like every bit the all-out scramble to get on top of it that a fumble should feel like. You know what I mean? It's like you're just like switching, and like the ball's fucking never really stops bouncing. Well, it does eventually, I guess, but
more than you would expect.
Right? Like, yeah, it bounces all over the place a shit ton.
Oh my gosh, my first run of the playoff, like my first drive of the playoff, I was running, I was marching down the field. It was great. Oh man, freaking my quarterback. Like, we got to maybe the 40, and then I took off up the middle, gashed him all the way down to, like, the freaking 10, and, of course, he fumbles it.
Because you were probably cooking that speed.
No, at that point, I wasn't, because it was my quarterback, so I was just kind of just going, because I was like, it's my quarterback. I was shocked to even get that open. But, like, he fumbled at the end, and I was so upset because they just returned it like another 40 yards back the other direction.
Yep.
It was just,
Yeah, that's the thing, too. When you fumble, it's in your backfield, so all your players are
nowhere near you.
Yeah, nowhere near where that ball's going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just fuck it. It's tough, man. Fumbling in the backfield is tough, as it should be. I had plenty of scooping scores, too, though. Like, possible for you to pull that shit off as well. Yeah, the running game has much nuance to it. We kind of talked about that a little bit already, but some of the plays like the sweep automatically go to the running back almost instantly after the snap, which are much safer to do. But I think if you can execute those ones where you have agency over what happens, like I said, if you can wean it out and not make the pitch until the last second, you can exploit that everyone is running towards that quarterback with the ball, so you can get an advantage by holding that ball as long as possible, which is pretty cool and nice. So at halftime, when that happens, you get a little cheerleader entertainment animation on the Jumbotron, and that was kind of common for the times. You get a little ditty for that too.
I oddly did remember that screen, like that animation. I was like, I remember seeing that. Like, I don't know, it felt like one of the first cheerleader animations I saw.
The skirts are short. That's why.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Just like in Tecmo, where they're dressed. At least her dress flies up in Tecmo, so at least they didn't go that far here.
It's Nintendo. Come on, it's NES. NES made it themselves, right? That.
At the end of the game, it cuts to the scoreboard for the hopefully victory scoreboard animation, and then to the quarter by quarter LED score display, then to an LED spelling out of your team here wins. And then we get a team stat breakdown. You'd see at the top of a real football box score, run-pass ratio, first downs, rush and pass yards, total yards, turnovers. And you cut from there to Nestor of Nintendo Power Howard and Nestor fame, which is another testament to just how early they were in this. That they that's so interesting that they used him, right?
Right. It's so jarring to see, but now reading about it, now it kind of makes sense. Like, they made it. They can do whatever they want. But it just, at the time, it's like, wait, what? How did you get in here?
Right. Yeah, he's seated at a desk with a mic in front of him, a la Sports Center. It's got a little dedicated tune here as well. The scoreboard behind him, a speech bubble from him below that, and it reads the results of today's matchup. Whatever your team name is, played a great game. The scoreboard transitions to the X team wins text, and then he'll just sit there blinking with that copy in a speech bubble and the music cranking along. And I'm guessing there are fail-state versions of the in-game animations and Nestor copy. Maybe you could tell us those, but I wouldn't know what they are.
I definitely did not write them down. It was sad, and I felt very shameful. Seeing them multiple times and seeing his face just made me angry at that point. To be honest,
it's very, very, very.
But it was
fair.
cool to see him the first time, and then after I was like, just go away, man. I'll see you next time.
Very fair. After these messages,
we'll be right back.
It'll knock you off your feet. It's full field views and playbook options. It's Super Play Action Football, part of the Super NES Sports Network, and it's in a league of its own.
That is a 1993 commercial for the SNES Play Action release. I remember very little about that.
One.
Yeah, so I didn't really fuck with it much. So I look forward to seeing the differences when they get there. But you have a bunch of familiarity with that, or?
I mean, a little bit. Like
it was a launch title, I believe, for the SNES.
Yeah, and I loved, SNES was my favorite console, so it was kind of like, oh yeah, I remember this was the upgraded one. Like I definitely didn't play this 4-player with anybody, but.
I can
more
picture
detail.
I can picture the Pittsburgh Steeler without the logo guy on the label and shit, but I very little about the game that I recall.
Yeah.
So the other, besides just exhibition games that you might play, the other big functionality is the playoff run, and this is it's a 7-game fucking playoff. You basically play every other team that you're not playing as in the game in a
like a round robin kind of.
Well, not round, like
linear, but only linearly.
Exactly. You say that's funny because I thought that's the word or the phrase I thought of. So I looked up what the actual definition is. Round robin requires you to play. Every team plays every other team. So it's only like one slice of the round robin, which I guess you could role play the other teams. But what would that mean? You would need something else to happen then, because
we're just basically you're pretending that they're playing. It's somehow a super tournament and you're all advancing.
Right. Right. All away games too. If you look at it like that, they're always the second team, and the way American sports matchup abbreviations go, the second team is the home team. So you have to go on the road for this gauntlet of a playoff run to the Powerball.
The lowest seed the whole time.
Right. Wow. Yeah. High drama, which is how it should be. The first thing first on the 4-player extra Houston strategies and tips shit that we get into here. Mike Rozier definitely has some pep in his step. Like I immediately, once I was playing as them and playing in the playoffs, dude, it was easily the most reliable thing in my offense. So they were 100% accurate about that, as wrong as I think it is about fucking actual whatever. So that's probably the biggest takeaway from my entire playoff run was like Mike Rozier was my MVP. Hands down. There's no question about it. I guess maybe that's a good way to format this. Who would you say, how many games did you end up playing? And in the playoff run, and who was your MVP?
Carthon over and over the MVP. He was carrying us on his back. But I only played 2 games. Like I lost, came back, lost, came back, and I was like, dude, I can't
get out of the first round.
I can't keep it on. I can't keep it on my back. I can't keep the running game on my back. Like I could get into some exhibitions and, make it work, kind of get through. But I'm like, I can't reliably make enough passes to, keep this thing going. Especially when, turnovers happen. Because for me, my first, playoff started off well. I was running, going, ended the game with 3 turnovers, and that killed me. I was so mad. Yeah. It would be like...
I had a bunch of 4 turnover games. I still, I won
you still,
every game. I didn't lose, but I had some... you turned the ball over for sure. But I would be
double yardage. like double yardage of my opponent, but those 3 turnovers just killed me. I was just
right?
crying.
That's how real football works. Got to protect the football.
Exactly. I'm not even mad at that, but I was so frustrated. Like, why is passing so hard? I can't do it, man. Yeah. But of course, I can't run all of my running backs to death. But Carthen, he would 40-yard chunks, 46 yards.
Yeah.
Like
I had a lot of very specifically 38 to 40-yard runs. So there's something in the code that makes that that's your speed with something happening there where that happened a weird amount. That number, that yardage gain happened a lot. Well, that's a bummer to hear. So I went all through. I didn't lose any games. I had some tight ones. Probably it's funny. The Power Bowl ended up being my tightest one, so I guess I'll just talk about that one game specifically.
Okay.
Instead of boringly going through each one. But yeah, this game was pretty fucking wild, dude. So I started off with me shit hammering them. I went up 21-0.
Oh, so game over. Oh,
that's what I thought. Yeah, exactly. Jumped out to a 21-0 lead into the first quarter. I'm still up by that amount. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is gonna be. I'm coasting. I would proceed to not score again in this game, Jay. So it stayed 21-0 into early fourth quarter, and I just I had some turnovers. I had two complete. I bullshit. Probably got a little cowboy for the one, but I had 2 interceptions that fucked me. I was able to keep the defense up and not break though, and not get scored on. Now I get into the early fourth quarter, dude, and I have 2 bullshit ass fumbles. A Rozier stamina is cooked fumble because I'm not watching the stamina, so I'm just doing a sweep, trying to run at the clock, and he just drops the fucking ball. They pick it up and run it back for a touchdown. And then the very next fucking drive, they kick the ball off. I get I might have ran one other play, but I think it was within 2 minutes that the next score happened. But I had a botched exchange with Moon and running a play I'd run a million times. It was the fucking on the dive play. How do you fuck up the dive play? All you gotta do is take
Not
one step.
Play, but yeah.
You take one step and hit the B button and give it to the guy, and somehow it fumbles the ball. They pick it up and run it back for another fucking touchdown. And I'm like, this is at the beginning of the fourth quarter. So now it's 21-13, and they're lining up for a fucking PAT, dude. And I'm like, I am kind of sweating. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm gonna lose the fucking Powerball. You gotta be kidding me. All these games that took, who knows how much. I mean, I probably have 10 man hours built into this game, into this playoff run because of how long these games take. So. Yeah, it's 21-13, and I blocked the fucking PAT, dude. I couldn't believe it.
Nice.
Only time I've ever done in my life. Only time I've ever blocked a PAT in my whole life. And it's
you're only in the Powerball once, Josh.
I guess, yeah. Fucking coming to play. Fucking who I don't even know who it would have been. Probably Grimes is the nose tackle guy that I would get a lot of sacks with. Maybe he was the one that did it. But fucking barely through the line at all. Hit the jump button, and it was he looked like it was one of the pass blocks. It was a one-handed deal. And the ball just bounced down the fucking line of scrimmage. And I was like, oh, that is so critical that now it's still a 2-score game. You know what I mean? So I breathed a little bit there, but I was if they'd have made that, I'd have been fucking sweating, man. So yeah, there was 10 minutes left when that happened. So I go from kicking their ass and then little goofy on the fucking not scoring, but I'm up 21-0. Who cares? And then those 2 scores happen in a matter of 2 minutes. And I'm like, fuck, So the next 10 minutes were the next 2 minutes were fucking. I was super fucking, very deliberate, trying to keep the ball on the ground. I had a few times though where I had to make some fucking clutch throws. I had I think 2 throws the Moon, where they were just fucking. That's why I hadn't scored in fucking 2.5 quarters was because they had stopped at the run. So I was able to fucking wait it out and get to the end of the game and win that fucker 21-13. But it felt like it probably should feel, I suppose, in the Super Bowl Powerball.
Nice.
Got
Very
pretty
nice.
hairy, but I won that fucker. So yeah, so everything about the in-game scoreboard shit is the same. We're number 1 animation, dude. Houston wins. The copy's a little different in the studio. Houston has won the Powerball. There's 2 exclamations on that. Houston gets the Power Trophy. Only 1 exclamation for that for some reason. Then Houston is the champion. 2 exclamations again. And I think the middle one was just because it ran out of characters in the box. Would be my guess. But so yeah, that'll just stay on the screen until you let you revel in it in silence. And then when you do hit a button, I thought it was just cutting back to the title screen actually, but because it just starts the national anthem and that trumpeting thing. I was like, oh, it's just nothing. I was kind of bummed out. But if you sit and watch it for a second, a little something's going on here. The next shot cuts to the players lined up. But it's not those red jerseys that are in the title screen. It's your team's jerseys. So
Okay,
it
nice.
shows your guys lined up for the national anthem. And I thought that was kind of, it was probably a not too code intensive palette swap that they're able to fit into a pretty packed game, but give you something. So I'll credit them for that. So, and that just loops in perpetuity as long as you can possibly listen to that 15 to 20 seconds of the anthem play. It'll do that for as many times as you want. So.
That is the title screen for Super Play Action Football. Had to get a little extra here, bringing us in because I thought it was a dope track as well.
I think there's maybe more drama with mine, so maybe you just want to give me yours, which I'm guessing is a no.
I'm torn. It's funny, when I started my notes, I just preview had yeses in here. Just automatically, because of course I would. And when we had our 2-player thing, it was fun. I actually had fun 2-player. It reminded me of the Manhattanites days, like playing on the GameCube.
I totally forgot about the team name. Yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic. The Manhattanites. That's great.
Yeah. It was so awesome. Or the Harlemites.
06 NBA Live.
Harlemites.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it was Harlemites, yeah.
Yeah, because we had one on each. Yeah. Harlemites. Manhattan Harlemites.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, so I had fun during that, but playing by myself, the passing was such a struggle. And as much as I loved this as a kid, it just felt so dated. We just played the original Madden and experienced the original Madden versus current Madden and how that felt, and just, even Tecmo Bowl, it just, I don't know, compared to those, it just doesn't. I guess in my mind, this would have been the top coming in. If you'd asked me a month ago, yes, NES Football. We talked about it so much, I couldn't play it. It's a yes. As a kid, it was a yes. But did I have fun in a 2-player mode? Yes. In a 1-player mode, no. Would I recommend it? No. But if they remastered it right now, it'd probably be better. It'd probably be easier.
If you remastered it, you would have Madden.
Yeah, even the same diagonal, but just made the passing easier, maybe an icon, so there was
something.
I don't know, made it more intuitive.
So yeah, kept the retro vibe.
Kept the retro vibe.
Just did some smarter things with the. Yeah,
but I'm torn, man. It's because again, I loved it as a kid. We're playing it on the couch. I'm having fun, but that passing makes me want to just put it down, and it's hard for me to bless it when I want to do that.
Right. Yeah, man, I feel all that for sure. Well, I guess give me a final answer.
I feel like I can't I feel like turning my back on it would be like turning my back on a child. So I'll give a blessing on it from with that whole an honorary doctorate degree. You served a place, so and you were meaningful for things. So I'll give you a blessing, but we both know
for what you were when you were. Yeah.
Exactly, but I'm not going back and playing this again.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting to hear you say because same thing. I'm clearly coming in with a fucking dump truck of nostalgia for this game, and
yeah.
I don't normally put a lot of modern context on my determination for this. I'm never here going. I'm telling the blessing does not mean to me this is a great game in fucking 2024. I'm not trying to bring it forward into the current gaming landscape and say whether it's worth playing now. I'm saying whether it was worth playing then and deserves to be considered an NES game of, merit. And so, my biggest problem with it, I guess, is, I'm even sure what to say this, a bigger problem with it is the AI. It's so dumb. And honestly,
so and I was fly off the screen.
Yeah, and I was winning. So it's not like AI limited dumb fucking me. It's so dumb. There were so many times where the guy would they would be running and I would not be anywhere near him and they would just run out of bounds. And it's what the fuck did you do that for? So there's just a lot of dumb shit. And the blockers clearly yours and theirs doing dumb shit all the time. Man. It's a lot of stupid AI that is like really stupid. And like, you know, they do dumb shit in Tecmo too, but it's simplified more there. So like their AI limitations aren't as on display because this is, again, so much more predicated on like the strategy and like you have more time to literally see everyone fucking up because it's moving slower. So like, you know, it's a tougher context for probably the same level of AI. It just feels worse because you're feeling more of it, you know what I mean? And that is really where like, I'm leaning towards I don't think so, and that is why, because the fucking AI is so bad. But yeah, that, I mean, we get into the 2-player co-op and like it's just so cool. And like
you can get up and block and you communicating.
It's so fucking good, you know? It's so good. And honestly, like I had written down here I don't think so, but I think playing the 2-player thing reminded me of like just how it's just so fucking good, and
that's why I said like I really think this was made for the 4-player. This was made for a co-op experience. Like to just you can play it alone, but it was not made with that in mind.
The 1-player stuff, yeah. Dude, I mean, I was vaping most of those games. Like I had more than one like 70-0 game. Like I just kicked the fuck out. I kicked the fuck out of Miami. But a lot of it's because like the sacking's too easy too. Like if you know, like I said, there's that. Even if I'm not using,
if you're picking certain plays,
well, even that. I mean, yes, that one play is almost an automatic sack just because of the way the lineup is, and your first switch is always to that guy that's just going to run right over the center and fucking sack him before he can even get to the top of his drop back. But also, quarterback runs around forever on most plays. So like, as long as you can get a semi good switch, I'd get a sack on at least 75% of fucking passing plays. Most games would end and they would have negative passing yards. Net passing yards because
that's
of sacks,
funny.
You know,
like it's funny you say that because when in modern football I'm playing Madden, I'm always switching. Like pre snap, like post snap, I'm switching. In this game, I felt like I could never switch quick, so I just never did. I would just play as who they left me as because I'm like, all right, I can't.
It's interesting
until like somebody's like. And the play's progressing, then I'm switching. But like trying to switch to the man closest for a sack, I can never get there quick enough. So I just.
It's funny that you say that because there is a strat. Like I don't, because here's the thing: because of the way you switch that A and B button, if you don't hit that right, you just dive. So what you can often do if you're not careful is at the start of a play, you can basically just take, because they usually have you as like a linebacker or a secondary person. If you don't do the switch right and just dive, you take a guy in your back 7 out of the play. And like you can get smoked doing that. So
I know.
Yeah. So you gotta be super careful to make sure you're switching. And I also would be very careful. So at least it's a jump if you hit B to not be hitting a direction when I'm switching. You know what I mean? So it's not a dive, it's a jump at least. So it never occurred to me to mention that, but that is a very, you do have to be cognizant of that, and it's a conscious thing. But once again, I would often, also usually wait a second too. So there is a player who's closer to the quarterback. So the computer at least like makes the switch happen. And like, I don't know the math behind that either too, but like, you know, we were trying to do that onside kick. It just wouldn't, like, it won't always switch to the player closest to the ball, or it's not always determining where, like, the closest to the ball, like in the onside kick, it's flying through the air. So maybe you're not, like, you're trying to switch to the guy closest to where the ball is going to go, not where it is. And that's tough. You know what I mean? So like there's just a lot of nuanced shit. And that is a perfect example of shit that can be streamlined in a remake without losing the retro vibe of it, you know? So yeah, dude, I was totally leaning towards not giving it the fucking blessing, but talking about that 2-player, just experiencing that 2-player thing. Just how it's so good. It's so good. We've got to figure out, can you imagine trying to figure that out on Parsec, how long that would take? But we've got to figure out a way to play 4-player and do that the first time in our lives. It's got to be so much fun. We just got to figure it out. We got to prioritize doing that. We'll bring on one of the Lord Disciples and fucking play with Jab, and fucking we got to figure out how to do it because it's just so much fun and so fucking good.
Nice.
Word! So we game mapped NES Play Action Football as best we could. I hope you enjoyed it, Lord Disciples. Next up is GamePro issue 18. We're getting back to the GamePro tip. You can subscribe to the pod on the platform provided by whatever dumbest company that serves up your pottery. Please rate and leave positive shit for the pod on that podcast platform of choice, or any other for that matter. The website is entertainment.com/ISOH pod. You can email us isohpodcast@gmail.com. Follow the pod on Facebook and or Instagram. Link to the YouTube gameplay videos playlist is in the show notes. Go to the ISOH subreddit if you want to get downloads on Reddit. We don't have a Patreon, but if you like giving money to things podcasters tell you to, like do so to our direction. The Able Gamers Foundation creates custom gaming rigs for gamers with disabilities, and that is cool as fuck. AbleGamers.org is where you can find them. T-shirts on the website. They're dope. We're both wearing one. Proceeds on those after pod expenses go to Able Gamers. Jay, how can people reach you on the social networks of the world?
Gentleman JB without the second E is where you can find me. That's also my gamer tag. So let's go kill some zombies or something.
I am on Twitter at Josh Folan. I am on Instagram. My Shifty is broke. And you can find me on the Oculus for, I guess, walkabout if you can drag me out of Asgard. Okay, bye.
Bye.